Welcome to Master the Game. I am Juce, and tonight we are going to be playing Call of Cthulhu, thanks to Sean Connors, Outsider 68. This is a game that Paula has been looking to play for a while now, actually, and I was happy to make that dream a reality. So you will see that we have color themes. I am Mr. Green for the purpose of this game. And let's jump over to BN Drake, if you want to introduce yourself, your channel, and the character you're playing.
Yeah, I'm Peter. My YouTube channel is BN Drake, and I'm Mr. Beige.
Excellent. And let's jump on over to Paula.
I am Paula. I am playing Miss Black tonight. Super pumped about it.
And you can see her on my channel. We paint miniatures pretty frequently here. And let's jump on over to the Dead Aussie Gamer.
G'day guys, my name's Michael and I am the Dead Aussie Gamer and I will be playing Mr. Red.
Awesome. And then our wonderful, it's called a Keeper, correct, Sean?
You can call me whatever you like, Lee, as you're such a lovely guy, but Mr. Red will have to call me Keeper, just for purposes of the game.
Yes, Keeper. Sorry,
Thank
Keeper.
Yes, my name is Sean Connors, aka Outsider 68. Long retired from YouTube, I have to be honest. Long retired. Long retired from a lot of things, actually. But very kind of Paula to ask specifically for me. Just noticed that, Lee. 10 years married they've been, but it was me that she wanted. Sorry, Cthulhu, was that?
It's true. I can't deny that.
Thank you. That's all I needed to know. The game is a success already before we begin. Yes, I am your keeper for this evening.
Awesome. Yeah, so let's get started then. Let's have some fun.
Okay, so we've already know who our players are. Just to recap, we have Mr. Red, Mr. Beige, Miss Black, Mr. Green, and for the purposes of a bit of additional support, I will be playing Mr. Grey. There would normally be a couple of other players. That would be Mr. Purple and Mr. Silver. Both those characters are assumed dead. The robbery that the characters have carried out has been a success in terms of getting away with the goods. More on the job a bit later on in a couple of flashbacks. But the game starts this way. I want you to picture an empty warehouse standing anonymously amongst a row of similar buildings. Sea winds ruffle seagulls' feathers as they cry and stalk along the dockside. The sea laps against the barnacled concrete and crumbling wooden piers, and a blue sky meets the sea. A stretch of land can be seen on the other side of the bay. The rusting carcasses of several boats are moored along this quay, and the sound of vehicles approaching can be heard. There is a van driven by Mr. Grey, myself, and there is a car driven by Mr. Beige just behind the van, driving up to the warehouse. The other characters are not there momentarily. Mr. Grey jumps out of the van. This is a security van. Imagine the era is roughly 1980s, modern day-ish. Mr. Grey goes over to these roller blinds. He pulls the chain, opens it, jumps back into the van, drives the van in and parks it quite close inside the warehouse, horizontally quite close to the WC, the office, and the kitchen area. And then, Mr. Beige, do you follow Mr. Grey's van into the warehouse?
Yeah, I'm right behind you. Tire screeching.
Fabulous. It's been a pretty difficult getaway. It was supposed to be an easy job. It hasn't proved to be the case. Just as you're making a decision with Mr. Grey whether to close the blinds of the warehouse, you can hear the screech of another car approaching. I'd like a decision between Miss Black and Mr. Green, who's actually driving the vehicle that's approaching quite quickly.
Okay.
I'll allow Mr. Green to drive the vehicle.
Of course it's me. Just like in real life.
You're coming in, you have to come in quite hot. There's a reason, because in the back of the car, bleeding on the back of the car, quite seriously, is Mr. Red. Mr. Red, you have got initially 14 hit points. However, you will start the session 6 off that, 8 down, having been shot in the side. It's a through and through wound, Mr. Red. You kept me waiting. I'm going to make sure this is very fun. It's not debilitating by any stretch of the imagination. It's a through and through wound. It's nasty. It's caused a lot of blood, of course. It does need some help, but you haven't had the time to stop for it. More on that in a minute. But you need to get into the warehouse pretty quickly. So I would like a drive roll, actually, from Mr. Green, if you'd like to make a roll for me, just to show me how skillful you are pulling the car in fast into the warehouse.
Yeah, let me do that.
You know you haven't been followed initially from the gun battle that took place out on the street. This is some distance away, of course.
So drive. Okay, I got to beat 30.
Oh, you're great for this. Fabulous. No problem.
Beautiful. So I cut the wheel over, and I roll a 74, feel the car get a little bit loose, and take it away, Keeper.
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, you kind of drive through the warehouse door straight into the side of Mr. Beige's car. Luckily, you're not damaged or hurt more. The only person that really suffers is Mr. Red with that gut shot wound that he's got. But you're okay. At this point, Mr. Grey closes the roller blinds down.
Yeah. You watch as Mr. Red sort of stands up and sort of, just sort of hunched over, sort of uses one arm to fling open the door. He then slams it with quite a deal of force, and then turns to yell at Mr. Green. If you just wanted to kill me, you should have left me back there with them.
I'm sorry, I was distracted. Miss Black was yap. Come on, I'm trying my best here.
Look, I thought you knew what you were doing. Like, come on, aren't you supposed to be good at this type of stuff, man?
I am, but the backseat driving has got to stop, lady.
Look, I don't even want to talk to you right now. Miss Black gets out of the car and slams the car and walks over to Mr. Red and says, "Hey man, you doing okay? You don't look so good."
He really could do with some help here. I mean, first aid or medicine might be very appropriate.
Oh, it's just a flesh wound. Just keep it down. Is there like any windows to this particular area that we've parked
Yeah, I
in?
think if you've had a chance to see it, there's a little map that Lee's kindly produced. I think everybody should have a copy for themselves to have a little look over. Hopefully you got it sent through. There it is coming up now.
There's the warehouse.
Yeah.
You can see, as you look at the warehouse, not marked on the map, but just where that sort of strange purple thing is, that's an old Pac-Man machine not plugged in. There seems to be an old poster on the wall by that. And there is a couple of paste tables that have been kind of set up with some food and beer, cards, dice, that kind of stuff. You see, they're ready, preparation for you being here. What you do know is that you ought to wait at the warehouse till 12 p.m. The time now is about 2 p.m. as you've arrived. You've got to wait till 12 because coming across the bay is going to be a ferry that's going to collect you and the goods from the security van. All you know is that there are 4 strong boxes in that security van. You got away with those with the van, but it wasn't as easy a job as was painted out by the boss, Tony.
All right. Mr. Red's going to basically hobble as, like quickly as he can over to the door. He's going to place an ear on the door and try to listen out for like the sounds of sirens or anything.
Yeah, and you do catch them. The good news is it's not closing in on your area. They seem to be going past. Whenever you hear them, they're going away from this area, thank God. And after a few minutes of this, it does dissipate and you don't actually hear them anymore. So it's pretty clear. It looks like you've got away initially.
All right.
Still bleeding out.
Yeah, still bleeding out. At this point, I'll sort of take a sigh and turn and begin to make my way over to where I imagine we've got a medical kit or like a first aid box, like somewhere.
Yeah. There is on the table. I mean, it wasn't expected to be used, but yes, there is a first aid kit there. It'd be easier if somebody else was to help you. As it looks like none of the others are forthcoming, Mr. Grey will walk over. He's been making a couple of notes in his book. He makes his final note, puts the book inside his top pocket, walks over. Yes, looks like I could probably help you, I think, with that. One moment, he says. He has a little dabble and gets out some duct tape and some fluid of some kind to wipe away the injury. Looks like he's gone straight through there, Mr. Red. I think you've been very lucky indeed. He puts what looks like some sort of alcohol sort of solution on. It's very painful, makes you wince quite badly, and then really just duct tapes up both sides of the injury. I'm sorry, it's primitive, he says, but it will help. You actually get back 3 hit points. It's a pretty good job, Mr. Grey's done. Some of us are still a little professional, Mr. Red.
Yes, but lucky is not exactly what I'd call what just happened. What was that just then?
A setup. Somebody hears a rat.
Mr. Green steps over and says, "Hey guys, can I get a couple hands? Let's get this door fixed that I just hit. Can we like try to at least close the warehouse? We're really exposed right now."
You got through the warehouse doors. You actually hit Mr. Beige's car in the side.
Right. Oh, okay. So it didn't actually take the door out of the.
No. Luckily,
Good.
luckily that hasn't really caused too much damage. Only potentially two getaway cars. It's not that bad, but it can't be.
Gotcha.
It's not undrivable.
Is there
And the fuzz
any
is already on the move.
looking around? Do we see any like spray paint or anything like that around?
Yeah, as you look around, you can see the warehouse is divided into two parts. There's the part that you're in. You can see that there is three little rooms that lead off that, and behind to the far side of the warehouse, it looks like there's like pallets and dust sheets and all sorts of things around the corner. That kind of stuff that you can see over there. And you can see some walkways, raised walkway running around the outside. The only light comes in through windows above. It's half and half brickwork, half metalwork, to be perfectly honest with you. And this is the last warehouse. There's several of them along this quay. This is the last one closest, if you will, to the far end of the pier.
Okay. I would end up probably walking over and seeing what's in some of these crates in the other room and stuff, looking for anything that might be useful. As we
you notice as you start walking round to go there, it's the first thing is that this warehouse only has light from the windows above, so it's actually quite dark. It really could do with some lights. There must be something here, but they're not on.
Okay.
Why don't we see if there's like some chairs in this like office over here or something like that, or like a table in this kitchen we can sit down in or something.
Yeah, you've got these pace tables. There isn't anything really to sit on, but you're quite right. I mean, you could make your way over to the kitchen. You'll see that there are some white chairs, wooden chairs that have been stacked up, pretty dusty, but they could be pulled out and used to sit on. Frankly, Mr. Red could do with a few minutes. Probably.
Yeah, I'll Miss Black will walk over and grab the chairs and kind of just like wipe them off.
Yeah, I think Mr. Gray will come over and give you a hand with that.
Yeah, I'll try and escort Mr. Red over there and just kind of help kind of just set him down. Just say like, do you want anything? Like, I don't know. Anything else I can do for you?
If there's any bourbon.
I mean, like I can go check. Maybe I'll start rummaging through the things in the kitchen, and there's
quite a lot of stuff that's been left out on these pace tables. You got some basic cans of beer, some sandwiches have been pre-made, as I say, some cards, a radio. There's a few bits and pieces there. Maybe you're looking for something specific, so you can go and have a rummage around in the kitchen. What are everybody else doing at this point? Mr. Gray is probably still attending to Mr. Red. That makes sense. While Mr. Black goes off. What about Mr. Beige and Mr. Green?
Mr. Beige gets out of the car after it was run into by Mr. Green.
Yeah.
Thought I was going to have to worry about seagull crap. And now I got to worry about this potential damage. Take off my sport coat and chuck it into the front and close the door. Carefully watching because I saw Mr. Red walk by. Make sure there's no blood handprints on my car.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go check the car to see if it's drivable.
It's still drivable. He's just dented in a couple of the side doors. More difficult getting passengers in and out, but that's the least of your worries.
Okay. I look over at Mr. Red and I see his injury, and I got shanked in the joint, so big deal. He'll be fine.
Yeah.
So
what about you, Mr. Green?
So I will have seen Mr. Beige checking out his car, and I'll be like, "Look, man, those Oldsmobiles, they make great. I mean, the color choice you made is just as good as your clothes. Beige, I approve. I will cover any costs of damages from my cut of the deal after the fact. I'm sorry about hitting your car, man. But what's up with that gold chain? A man your age? Come on.
It's a memento.
All right, understandable. And then I'll kind of I'll step back more into the darkness to kind of act like I'm looking in those crates, even though it's the other room and I know it's dark, until maybe everybody goes off to the kitchen or whatever.
Sure. We haven't really talked about what people look like. You have a vague description on the character sheets, but let's fill in a few of the blanks. Let's start with Mr. Red. What does he look like, Mr. Red, other than red at the moment?
I have a very trendy haircut. I'm in my probably early to mid 20s. I had a very nice suit, that is now perforated with a very sizable gun wound and stained red. Yeah, I'd say this individual is quite reasonably good looking with a very clean shaven appearance.
Mr. Beige?
Mr. Beige is early 40s, graying. Did have a suit on, but he has taken off his coat. Has a few scars. Looks grizzled. Has definitely seen some time.
Yep. Okay. Miss Black?
Miss Black is also in her early 20s, like Mr. Red. She has extremely curly black hair and lots of it, wearing a very trendy shell suit in all black, of course. And she's pretty energetic and kind of willing to make sure everything gets done right.
Okay, excellent. Mr. Green?
So Mr. Green is he's an older veteran gangster. You guys have probably known him on some deals in the past. He's got graying hair, and he's currently wearing green gloves and a green suit, almost Riddler-esque without the question marks all over it.
I love that. Okay. Yeah, Mr. Gray is very similar. A grey suit to match the occasion, grey hair, notebook. He's been making notes since the job started, always asking, simple things, observing really rather than actually asking questions. Has been his demeanour. Seems to know his way around, obviously, medical stuff. That was pretty clear. Very, very, very able to assess the situation. But quite standoffish, more reacting to what you're up to than giving anything away at this stage. I guess all of you are similar. You don't want to give you away too much. Yeah, it's going to be quite dark quite soon, maybe within a couple of hours. And you can definitely tell the light within this building is going to fade very, very quickly. It is a little after 2 o'clock, but it won't take long. Weather outside is very cold. Time of the year, it's definitely winter. No doubt about that. But it's not snowing. It just has that kind of potential at any time it could. It just hasn't yet. Yourself, Miss Black and Mr. Gray have brought the chairs out. Mr. Red is probably just momentarily sitting down. You do feel a lot better from the medical help that you've received. And as he said, the injury isn't debilitating. You can function quite normally, to be honest.
Yeah. While I'm watching Mrs. Black and Mr. Gray set up the tables and stuff, I'm going to quickly make my way over to the loot that we have acquired from this last job.
It's in a locked security van. That van would need opening to get in. It shouldn't be difficult, but it would need opening.
Okay, so we haven't yet opened the secure compartment of that van.
No.
Okay.
A little bit of the backstory of this will come shortly, but in essence, just to make life a little clear, what you know of it was that the job was being done about 7:45 in the morning. It was outside an art dealership. The security van was coming in. The boss, Tony, knew all about it coming in. Should have been a simple job. 2-man teams on this security van. With the amount of people that you've got in your experience, it should have been very, very simple. However, that wasn't the case. It seemed as if the police were waiting. You did manage to get the van. You did manage to get away, but you certainly lost a couple of people and you got injured in the process. Let's flash back momentarily with Mr. Red, Miss Black, and Miss Green. How did Mr. Red save Miss Black? Tell us about how you got away.
So we were at the art dealership, and the job was reasonably simple. We were scouting out the area and waiting for the truck to inevitably arrive. And in a moment where the two drivers that would normally be in the front of the wagon, one of which the security person, the second being, of course, the driver, as the security person moves to in order to secure the vehicle, Mr. Green was to create a distraction for the patrolman, while Miss Black got into the car, and Mr. Red would then kill the driver, dragging them out into the street so that the car would be gained. However, as soon as Mr. Green went around the corner following the security patrol, he came upon something he wasn't expecting.
Oh, crap.
Roll the ball.
So when I came around the corner, they quickly said, "Oh my gosh, that's the guys I got the tip on." And so I quickly turned around and started running to the car. Miss Black actually got out of the driver's seat and said, "Drive," and stood between me and two of the officers as I jumped into the car and drove to drive. And then what did she do?
So Miss Black, seeing Mr. Green jump into the car, knowing somehow she had to grab Mr. Red, went to run towards Mr. Red and grab him to shove him into the car. And as she grabbed him, Mr. Red sees one of the security guards pull out a gun, and he kind of pivots around so that as the gun goes off, he gets shot while Miss Black is still trying to hold him and shove him into the car. So she gets the door open, shoves him in and closes it, runs around and gets in the passenger side, leaving Mr. Red laying across the back of the car, bleeding out, Mr. Green driving, and Miss Black, of course, upset, yelling at Mr. Green because he apparently couldn't handle a simple distraction.
Fantastic. Okay, let's come back into the warehouse momentarily. Brilliant. Well done. Mr. Red, you were saying?
Moving to the back of the car, not knowing exactly who to trust at this point, knowing that maybe perhaps they expected us. There's a sort of like this niggling feeling clawing at the back of his head, and he almost braces as his heart sinks into his stomach. He doesn't want to open this thing and find out it's empty. That's the biggest thing for him right now.
I understand. Yep. Good.
So I'm gonna try and bust into this into the.
There's a couple of ways if you've got. There's a couple of ways you could do it. You could crowbar open the back. I mean, there's no reason to be subtle at the moment. Obviously, if you are more skilled, you might be able to find a different method on your character sheet to help you.
Let's see. What type of locking mechanism is it? Is it kind of like a deadbolt? Is it?
Just a very simple. You would expect it to be like a couple of deadbolts that have been used to secure the back of the door.
All right. All right. What I'm going to do is in this regard is I'm going to take out one of my 7.6 mil rifle bullets.
Wow. Okay, I can see where this is going. Yep.
I'm going to attempt to disassemble it and pour it into the locking mechanism, then use demolitions to attempt to blow out the lock.
Not a problem at all. I mean, there are tools in here that you can see that have been left near the pay stables. You probably have some in your car as well, so no problem. Pair of pliers, you can undo that and pour it into the lock. Makes a very effective use. I won't ask you to roll. Very effective. It's small enough explosion. It's only like a sound of a bang, and you've got the two doors momentarily partially open. The good news is, Mr. Red, there are 4 metal boxes, as was expected, in the back of the security vehicle. Now, these metal boxes are probably in the range of about 3 foot long, a foot high, a foot wide. So they probably need a couple of men to carry them. Got no idea what they carry, but they certainly look interesting.
I'll take a quick sigh and reach into my pocket and pull out like one of those really old like brush combs and just sort of. This is kind of like his stress ritual, as it were, as he just brushes his hair and he.
Mr. Gray gives you a little tap on the back. Good job. Gets his notebook out. Great job, that Mr. Red. Well done. Makes a little note. Excellent.
So hearing that bang come from the back of the car, Miss Black comes running out of the kitchen with a whole bunch of beers, and runs around towards the back of the car and kind of says, "Hey, what are you doing? Are you all right? Shouldn't you sit down?"
Oh yeah, definitely feeling much better right now. I reach up and grab one of the beers.
You can see that the back of the security vehicle is open and there are 4 metal boxes in there.
I'll actually, I kind of ignore the boxes or seem to ignore the boxes for right now. I'll toss a beer over to Mr. Beige and one over to Mr. Green before I open and start to drink one myself. And I'll kind of casually point at them and say to Mr. Red, "So, what do you think is in there?"
I mean, seeing that there aren't enough beers to go around, Mr. Red sort of passes half a can of cold beer to Mr. Gray. He says, "Well, look, if I had to say, this thing being a setup, I was mostly worried that they were empty, but these things look like they're heavy enough to have something at least worthwhile in them. So I'm glad, first of all,
it's the boss's job. We're not going to open those, are we, Mr. Red? I mean, I appreciate you wanted to check, and that's a wise move, but we're not going to go and open them, are we?"
So I'll step forward as he's saying that. I'll be like, "Mr. Gray, I mean, we need to know if these are indeed what we were going for. I mean, right now, I don't know if I can trust you, Mr. Red."
It was never discussed by the boss what would actually be being carried by the security truck. I don't think that's any of our business. I don't know about you, Mr. Green, but whenever you're an experienced man, you know the ropes. Do you think it's wise to look at the goods? Do you think Tony's not going to be upset if we start messing about with them?
I do. I think we should. I mean,
okay.
We can always lock it back up if we...
Sure.
What
do you think, Mr. Beige? You've been quiet. Very quiet, actually.
Too quiet? I don't know, Mr. Gray. Have you put down on your little notepad that this was pretty much a setup?
I made some notes about it, yeah.
Okay, good.
I'm not happy. Let's put it that way. I'm sure you're not either.
No.
There's still a lot to discuss, but I'm sure we'll get round to it.
Well, I don't think it would hurt to find out what's in these boxes.
Okay, then let's have a look. If you think it's important.
If you guys all want to open up the boxes, it's probably a good idea.
I'm not adverse. If you think it's important, then let's open the boxes. Mr. Red, looks simple enough. I don't think there's any kind of mega locking mechanisms to these boxes.
I'm all for opening these boxes, but maybe it's just me, but what you said, Mr. Gray, when we came here, what the vibe is from all of you is that someone knew what was going down and someone let something slip.
That's what I'm saying, Mr. Red. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
I'm hoping that it was Mr. Purple or Mrs. Silver. I'm hoping that was the case because, man, I would sure hate to kill you guys. I have grown to like you over this job, and that's definitely been my feelings. I mean, hell, you patched me up really good, Doc, and I'm feeling all right. But
I think you got a good point, Mr. Red. If it was one of us that had set it up, let's be honest, the police would have been all over this place. Let's be honest.
That's very true.
That's how I feel about it, but I don't know about the rest of you.
Just to help my state of mind, how about we take a look at the cars for the getaways?
Yeah, that's a good idea. It's a good idea.
Yes, because ideally what I want to do is I want to check Mr. Beige and Mr. Green's getaway car just to see if there's any bugs or trackers or anything that would inform the police.
I like your thinking. I think that's a wise move, says Mr. Gray. Good point. Gets his notebook out. Great point, Mr. Red.
This kid does have some good ideas.
At least before we open this box up and, find out what's inside.
Where do you want to start first off? Are you going to go, which car do you want to have a look at first?
Do I know if any of the others have technical expertise based on our
No,
job?
you not a lot of detail. Yes, they do have some technical expertise in different fields. What would you divulge individually, all of you? I think Mr. Gray would be the kind of person who is clearly is the ear of the boss on the job. He's responsible for any kind of support help that might be needed. So hence the medical side of the equation. Maybe if the boxes need open, maybe Mr. Gray can come and step in and do, if it's required a bit more skill there. That's his expertise, those kind of things. But what about the others? What are they going to divulge to Mr. Red?
I would probably say that I'm normally good at kind of bossing people around, managing the operation. But with Mr. Gray doing that, I'm basically just a good second in command with a gun.
Sure. Okay. So good with a gun. Very needed on this job as it panned out.
Yeah.
Very needed. Okay. What about yourself, Miss Black? What would you divulge to Red here in terms of expertise?
Well, I mean, clearly I should have been the one driving the getaway car.
But you may want to have seen what Mr. Green was like, yeah?
Yeah, you kind of got to test it out a little bit. But definitely as far as like a mechanical perspective or, I'm pretty good with numbers too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
good. Mr. Beige. Excellent.
I'm pretty much the mechanic.
Perfect.
So I've gone over my car with a fine-tooth comb.
Yep.
So Mr. Red is a violent sort of man. Not in that he's aggressive or out of control or anything, but he definitely specializes in making people who are alive unalive.
Room temperature, I believe, is the word Mr. Beige used before you arrived with us, Mr. Red.
Yeah, that was what we decided, I believe.
I understand. Mr. Red has a kind of a skill, which shall we say, of room temperature control.
Yeah. So Mr. Red will approach Mr. Beige and will suggest we go over his car first, as he said. He has gone over it with a fine-tooth comb, so if we find something out of place...
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. You can hear, as you're walking across, and what is Mr. Beige doing as Mr. Red starts walking across at this point to the car? And what about other people? Are they sort of following?
I'd actually go next to Mr. Red, and I'd probably just be like, hey, this is a good idea, kid. I'd love to work
Mr.
more
Gray
jobs
is kind
in
of
the future.
nodding in agreement and following along. It sounds like a good plan, Miss. What about Miss Black?
I'm kind of hanging out.
A little bit further back from the rest of the group.
Yeah, just kind of watching what everybody does.
Well, while they're all distracted and they're about to start communicating, it's something you can just pick up with just you. Yeah, at the corner of your ear, you can hear what sounds like a baby crying from one of the rooms.
From one of the rooms.
Little rooms. Yeah. Oh. You don't think it's the kitchen?
So I'll kind of turn my head in that direction, and as they're kind of occupied with the
cars,
you
can definitely hear what sounds like a baby crying. It's very distinctive coming across. You can hear it. Only you can hear it. It's definitely coming from one of those rooms.
So
must be very young. Must be only a few months old.
Walk towards those rooms a little bit. I mean, I'm thinking maybe like there's somebody left.
You've been in the kitchen,
a radio on or something.
Yeah, maybe. Very good point. Maybe that's exactly what it is.
So I'll just kind of casually move in that direction.
You start walking over that direction. We're going to leave you for a moment walking over there while the others are now kind of just about to discuss stuff. So, Mr. Red, it's with everybody sort of, the other two are following you. That's Mr. Gray and Mr. Green are following you towards Mr. Beige's car, nodding in agreement of your decision that, we should go over the cars.
All right. So I don't know how much detail my character would know versus how much I know. But I know, for example, that a very common place that they put trackers and security is in the rim of the wheels, like just underneath. So that's
use any skills you want to bring in is perfectly fine. That's totally understandable. You start checking around the rims.
Careful with the white walls, kid.
You start checking around the front of the car. Mr. Gray and Mr. Green are kind of to one side for the moment. I don't think Mr. Gray would be able to add anything of any. He's not really his forte unless you're stumbling. What about you, Mr. Green? Are you happy watching Mr. Red?
Yeah, I'm happy watching it. And as he's doing that, I'll say, kid, if there's anyone here we can't trust, it's probably that Miss Black. I have a feeling.
Yeah, let's go back to Miss Black for a moment, if we will. Miss Black, you've kind of gone over towards sort of the office section. You can see that the office itself has one of those old-fashioned wooden doors with sort of an opaque kind of glass at the front. Can't quite see through to what lies in there. It is closed too. You can definitely tell that the baby sound is coming from within the office.
I'll just go ahead and, quietly open the door and walk into the office. As I do, I kind of, look back a little bit to hear them, squabbling amongst each other about the tracker on the car. So I'll just open the door and kind of walk into the office slowly.
Yep. As you go in, what's left in the office is there is an old-fashioned desk, which is one of those desks where you've got side drawers and you can sit and then put your chair under it, kind of thing. And coming from the side of this sort of drawer that you can't see, you can definitely hear this baby, this crying. You just can't quite see the baby. It's very dark in there. You haven't got a lot of light, just enough to see at the moment because obviously it isn't past 4 or 5, so there's just enough light.
Yeah, I'll look around for like a light switch or something like that.
The office, you can see there is actually a fuse box in the office, and you can see that there is definitely some fuses that have been placed in the off position.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll go over to the fuse box and kind of start messing with it, flipping the switches back to try and get
For those back of the car, you can see various lights start flickering on within the warehouse.
Mr. Green, you want to go check on her, please?
Yeah, I'll go babysit. I can't believe she's going to bring all this attention onto us.
I'm glad you said babysit. That's excellent. Right, Miss Black, let's just quickly come back to you before Mr. Green arrives. Okay, so you got the lights on in the room, and you just catch a glimpse of a small baby on the other side of the table, but you can't quite see it. Do you go around and have a look?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna run over there. I'm really
the baby itself. It's obviously only a couple of months old. It has its kind of back to you, and as you kind of reach that side of the desk, you see the baby kind of turn round, and in its hands it has a Magnum 45, which immediately goes off with a bang, bang. You get blasted in the chest with this gun going off, being carried by just a couple of month old baby. You're blown backwards. You feel you've been shot in the chest, and just at that very moment that this is all happening, everybody in the warehouse can definitely hear a discharge of a gun. Mr. Green has arrived at the office door. Mr. Green.
So I hear this, and as soon as I do, I draw my gun, my revolver, right? My revolver? Yes. And I kick the door open, and I'm like pointing it. And
lying on the floor, probably clutching a chest, probably looking for a bullet wound of some kind, is Miss Black. There is gun smoke in the air. There's definitely been discharged.
Can we still see the baby?
There's no baby there, Miss Black.
Okay, so I'm on the ground, like looking around, and I'm like backing up as far as I can to the wall, and I'm gonna yell at Mr. Green when I see him, like there was a thing over by the desk. It was like a little. It was like an infant. It shot me. Like I don't know. And
what
are
you talking about? You're insane. You're absolutely insane. There's nothing in here. What are you doing making all this noise and turning the lights on?
There's no actual physical wound, Miss Black, at this point, as you plead with Mr. Green. But for purposes of me, take 6 off your sanity.
How many do we start
Thank
with?
you very much. What about the others outside? This is for Mr. Beige and Mr. Red, who are just about to continue their search of the cars. You hear this gunshot go off.
Yeah, I just tell Mr. Red to stay low, and I draw my weapon and move down the car, watching the door to see Mr. Green go in.
Yeah, Mr. Green was near the door. You caught sight of him obviously this gunshot went off, and you can see Mr. Green kind of gun out, immediately pushes the door and steps in to see what he's about to face. Then it's gone all quite quiet, to be honest. There is some exchange of words. We'll pick back up with Mr. Green and Miss Black, currently just discussing things.
How many sanity points do we start with, by the way?
Whatever is on your character sheet.
Mine had not. It showed a total of 100, right?
Yeah, it would have some.
There's a number that's in bold.
It's a number that should be in bold.
Oh, I
sheet.
see it. It was hard.
If it isn't, then it will always assume it's 50. But I think they're all marked in case I've made a mistake. But if I have, please shout it out.
Cool. Yep, I got it. I will again be yelling at her like you're absolutely crazy. What did you do to create that sound? Why are you turning the lights on? Like I'm just furious that she's drawing attention to the warehouse.
So I was on the ground. I kind of scrambled to all fours and get back up on my feet, and I run towards the door and I grab Mr. Green and I point back to where I saw the baby, and I'm like, you saw the smoke. You can see it. You can smell it. Come on, man. It was right there. I swear I saw that.
I mean, yeah, I see smoke and stuff, but I mean, you just flipped the lights on like just before, like.
No, man, no.
Are you sure it wasn't a fuse in the fuse box blowing or something?
Yeah, no. There was no smoke coming from the fuse box. It's like from the middle of the room, dude. It was here.
While you're arguing over this discussion, I just want to check what Mr. Red is currently doing. Mr. Red.
Hearing the gunshot, the first thing that Mr. Red did would have looked to see where Mr. Green was.
Yeah.
Seeing that Mr. Green actually had his pistol out and the door hadn't been open, in his head, the first thing he thought was Mr. Green shot Miss Black for whatever reason, and then I'd have to deal with that. Seeing that wasn't the case, he sees Mr. Beige drawing a gun and covering Mr. Green, and thinks that that's all pretty much covered, and uses the opportunity to stay low and continue searching with Mr. Beige covering him. This time, of course, moving from the under the wheels to just underneath where the hood attachment would meet the bumper.
Yeah. Mr. Gray is still with you. He obviously ducked out. As soon as he heard the gunshot, he threw himself to the ground, momentarily trying to orientate where the gunshot had come from, and then has been kind of keeping an eye on what you're up to, but also trying to watch what Mr. Beige, Mr. Green is going on, but he's not going anywhere near what's happening at the moment. The pair of you, Mr. Gray and Mr. Red, can hear from the inside of Mr. Beige's boot. You can hear from inside the boot a kind of a sound, muffled sound, as if somebody's in there, and you can hear it being thumped from the inside.
Are we expecting that someone should be in the boot?
Not at all. Mr. Gray now is very concerned.
Mr. Red will sort of stand up and go and, sort of at Mr. Gray. As he stands up, he'll say, Mr. Beige, you said that you take good care of your vehicle?
That's correct.
Fine-tooth comb, I believe you said?
Mm-hmm.
Now, and I pull out my own comb. The thing about a fine-tooth comb is they're reliable till one of the bristles breaks. Then you let all sorts of things happen when you're not expecting it. Do you mind opening up the boot for us, Mr. Beige?
For what reason?
Checking your bristles.
How's that wound feel on your side?
Still pretty fresh, rather tender. About as tender as my trigger finger feels. Now, why don't you go up, open that boot nice and slow-like.
You must know who that is in that boot, Mr. Beige.
Yeah, it's my car.
Yeah, who's in the boot, Mr. Beige?
None of your concern.
Okay. All right. He starts backing off, Mr. Gray. Fair enough. He says, gets his notebook out, makes a couple of notes.
It's called insurance.
I understand.
We got double-crossed on this.
That's a fair point. What are you saying here, Mr. Beige? Who's in the boot?
Like I said, that's an insurance policy.
I like your thinking. Good point, Mr. Beige. Again, Mr. Gray makes a note.
Mr. Red sort of turns and sort of cracks his sort of neck. He's taken a more, I suppose, a hostile stance, but not like an aggressive stance once again. He says, I appreciate a good insurance plan, much as the next person, but if I'm working a job with a team, that insurance plan better be something special. Now, I don't care rightly who you got in there. What I do care is if who you got in there managed to get the word out, Mr. Beige. You can stick your ex-wife and take her on a honeymoon in this fashion if you so wish, but when we're on a job, we need to know what's going on. And what I need to know right now is what you got in that boot.
Well, first off, I need a bigger trunk because I got a lot of ex-wives. So if you want to see this trunk, you can.
I might not. Mr. Gray says, I might not want to see what your insurance policy is.
Mr. Red will sort of tighten up his suit and he'll ease up on his stance. He'll step back to give Mr. Beige plenty of room. It's, sort of a sign of...
Yeah.
Very well.
We'll hold you there for a split second while Mr. Beige decides what his next action is going to be. We're going to come back to the room where the gunshot went off. This is between Miss Black and Mr. Green.
So I'll go over to like the fuse box, and I'm kind of watching Miss Black because I don't trust her at this moment.
How do you look at the moment, Miss Black? Are you looking very perturbed? What are you looking like?
Miss Black is looking pretty like shook up, like pretty terrified, honestly. Like she's standing now where Mr. Green was at the door, and she's just kind of pointing back where she saw the baby, and she keeps saying, man, it was right there. I'm telling you, like, why would I make it up? I heard it. It was crying. I came in here to check on the baby. And then, like...
What baby? Who would leave their baby in a warehouse?
So big. Dude, the gun was so big. Like,
Yeah, baby holds a gun. Think about what the hell you're saying, woman.
I love it.
Look, man, I'm telling you.
Mr. Green, you're at the fuse box, okay? It looks like all of them have been placed on. Are you happy with that the lights are on in the place? This includes some of the outside lights as well.
Is the fuse box labeled?
Yeah, it is, yeah. You've got some for the quay lights. There's a few that have gone outside the warehouse are on, and you've got all the ones on the inside are on.
I would probably, looking at understanding where the windows were in the building, I would probably turn off all the main lights out there, but leave the lights on for like these couple rooms right here, if I can identify it.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, no problem. Okay, we'll come back to the scene at the car. So, Mr. Beige.
All right, so I take the key out, unlock the trunk, open it up.
Yep. Okay, could you describe what's in the trunk, please, Mr. Beige?
There is a bound and gagged security guard. This guy look familiar to you, Mr. Red?
Does he look familiar to me?
Do you think he looks familiar to you, Mr. Red?
Nope.
You didn't see him on the job. There were a lot of security guards. There were a lot of police officers around. It seemed to come from everywhere.
Yeah. No, I don't recognize him at all. But without sort of missing a beat, I'll sort of step forward. I'm going to search this guy's pockets and just the kind of surroundings of the trunk, see if there's...
He would have originally had a radio on him, obviously, but that was destroyed or removed in the process of bundling him into the trunk. The guy's been probably coshed over the side of the head, bleeding from side wound on the head. He's only just come to. He has been very well bound, hands, etc., probably with cat ties kind of thing, very quickly. And he's been gagged, but he can see you. And you can see his eyes are bloodshot kind of thing, and he's staring at you. And there's that hope that somebody's going to help him.
Do I have a flashlight on my person?
I would think so. I think it's a piece of kit that you could say you have.
Before he gets too accustomed to the light and obviously seeing my face, I'm going to keep the flashlight on his eyes so he can't quite see.
You'll notice Mr. Gray is not coming round to the side of the trunk. He just does not want to see this guy.
Yeah, so I'll, again, just keep looking around, but if I don't find anything on his pockets on the like, I'll very gently close the boot and turn to Mr.
The only thing he has on him is what's left of his name, but it's part of his name, Nash.
Yeah, I'm not going to take that from him. And then I'll very gently close the boot and say, I definitely like your forward thinking, but no, he's clean. So is your car, as far as I can tell. I suppose all that's left is to check Mr. Green's rig.
Yep.
Should we find out what's going on in the kitchen?
I think that'd be a good idea, says Mr. Gray. I appreciate you closing the boot down, says Mr. Gray. I don't want to be seen by any potential police officer. What are we going to do with him?
That's all right. We just we can get whatever information we need out of him and just put two in a hat and be done with him.
Yeah,
but don't
I agree
do
with
it in
that.
my trunk. Make sure you take him out. I don't want to pick up that mess.
Yeah, fair point. Okay, let's go and see what's happened over there between Miss Black and Miss Green. That sounds like a good plan. Let the group start wandering over to where you two are discussing stuff.
So I will have thoroughly looked where the baby was supposedly at, and I will then say, "There's nothing there. Come on, let's go, Miss Black." I'm like, "You couldn't have been on a lot of these jobs before, and I'm worried this might be your last job with what you're saying."
I'm telling you, it was like right there. Like, why would I make it up? You can't make up a baby with a gun. Like, why? Where would I make that up from?
You
Like,
just did.
God.
Think about it. If I were to tell you, I'm in a room by myself. I came in here because I heard a baby. I got shot, and that's what that noise was, by a baby holding a big gun. Don't you think that sounds pretty stupid?
You know what? Sometimes some crazy things happen. Like, I watched this show one time, man. Like, they were, like, following around, like, ghosts and stuff like that. Like, you don't know. Have you ever been in this warehouse before? No. You haven't ever been here. You don't know what's up with this place.
Ghosts.
Whatever.
There's
You
no
sit
such
in
thing as
this
ghosts.
office.
So now
This
it's a
is the
ghost baby with a gun.
conversation. This is the conversation that Mr. Red, Mr. Green, and Mr. Grey are kind of walking into. Something about a baby, ghosts. It's very odd.
You taking that down, Gray?
I'm making notes, he says.
I hope so.
What the hell is going on in here?
Look, you guys, okay. So I come in here because there's a baby crying. Like, I thought, like somebody left a radio on, something like that, right? Light's not working, so I decided I'd fix the light situation, of course, right? And I turn the lights on, and there's like a freaking baby on the floor who shoots me, like, as Mr. Green pops in the room. And, like, come on, Mr. Green saw it. Like, there was smoke everywhere. I swear to God, you guys, I'm not making this up.
Mr. Gray gets the notebook back out and starts making immediate notes on this.
You know
frantically.
what? Screw you, Mr. Gray. Like, with your little notebook. Like, what you writing down in there, huh? Maybe I should get a notebook and write down stuff about you.
You go ahead and make some notes. I'd be curious to see those.
All right, I will.
Like,
I say,
good.
Mr. Red, remember that thing I told you out there? Just remember what I said. I think this just further makes my point.
Mr.
Whatever,
Red
guy.
looks around the room. In particular, I want to look at the lighting fixtures. What state are they in? Like, not the fuse box, but the actual bulbs themselves.
is this while everybody else is kind of discussing what's going on?
Yeah.
Mr. Red. Yeah. Okay, I mean, if you look around the kind of outside, well, they're all in the rooms, you've got, like, the gantries running around outside, and you've got some natural light coming in. There are some light fittings through the centre of the rooms. They all look fairly dusty.
Specifically in this room.
The room they're in.
Yeah.
As you would expect, quite dusty. Looks like a couple of the fuses have recently been replaced. That makes sense. I think the boss, you would know from the initial story that the boss chose this location to be the kind of point you have to wait for the ferry to come. That's boss's choice. But it looks like somebody's been here a few weeks before and repaired it, so it could be used. That's the immediate thing that you can tell.
I'm going to walk up to Miss Black, putting out my hand. Your gun.
What?
You heard what he
Peace.
said.
Hand it over.
I'm pointing my gun at her and I say, "Do it."
You've got to be kidding me. I'll take out. I have a 38, I believe. Yep.
Yep.
I'll take
you'll
out
know-
a 38, and I
It's a-
will hand it over to Mr. Red.
The first thing he does as he takes it is he takes it slowly, again, not to startle or cause anyone any kind of alarm.
Yeah. People are a little bit on edge, so it's understandable you're cautious.
I'm going to place my hand on the barrel of the gun. Is it hot?
Feels a little hot. It's certainly been discharged. You can tell. You know these kind of things by just looking at the weapon.
But like as recently as when I heard the gunshot?
Oh, absolutely. She discharged her own shot. There's no doubt about that.
I basically say, put your hand on it.
Okay.
Yeah, it does feel warm, Miss Black.
Shot came from your gun.
Look, man, you know what? Like, that's not possible. Like, I was on the floor. My gun was still put away when Mr. Green came in the door. What did
She was
I
on her back. Clearly, she's never handled a gun before.
And
while they're talking, I'm going to discharge the cartridge just to pop it out, and I'm going to just very quickly count the bullets.
Oh, there would normally. I mean, you have been in a firefight, but you're experienced person. You're experienced at this. So what you would expect would happen is you might have, when you're got into a car, you would reload your gun because you don't know if you're going to run into more police. So you'd expect it to be full, and it is full, or it should be full, but it's one less. It's 12 rounds. There's only 11 in there.
Cool.
There's evidence on the floor in the office. You can see where the cartridge piece is lying on the ground.
Cool. And I'll put them on the board, and then what I'll do is as I basically unclip the 11 bullets and line them out in the empty cartridge, I'll then pick up the empty hollow point and put that next to it.
Hot copper. Wonder where that came from.
whatever, man. I'm out of here. I'll walk out of the
Mr. Beige, don't let her get out that door.
The office.
She's just getting out of the office.
I'm gonna just go sit on the hood of Mr. Beige's car.
Yeah, you can hear from inside. You can hear some thumping on the inside of the booth.
What's going on out here, you guys?
You know what they say about loose ends.
I'll just for a moment, I'll go over to where she's pointed towards where there was a baby. And I want to actually, because I know the area is covered in dust and the like.
Yeah. There should be some tracks. That's a very good point.
Yeah. So I'm
there's nothing like that, Mr. Red. That would be crazy.
I'll and then pull out my comb.
Yep. You can, Miss Black. You can hear what sounds like. There's a fire exit door near the back of the warehouse. If you look carefully on the map, and you can hear what sounds like some bottles that have been knocked over around the back of the building. That's quite noticeable. Several have been knocked over. Only you can hear it at the moment, Miss Black.
I'm gonna yell back to the other guys, and I'm just gonna.
Now, Miss Black, you do not have a gun, just so you know.
Yeah, I'm gonna yell to the other guys. I'm gonna say, hey, guys, I think you should get out here.
Well, I'll head out, but I'll.
Yeah,
I'll
you
grab
can hear. You can hear. Actually, it sounds like there's some movement at the back of the building. You might be able to see it better from the gantry looking down. It's possible there are windows up there. You might be able to see whoever's operating outside. There's no cars out there. That as much as you can tell. Nothing's unless they've driven in quietly, of course.
Cool. I'll grab Mrs. Black's gun and I will reload it, as it were, and head out.
Are you going to go up the stairs, up onto the gantry?
Where is Mrs. Black heading?
At the moment, she's still. Sorry, you go ahead, Miss Black.
Yeah, I'm sitting on the hood of Mr. Beige's car, and I'm just kind of pointing towards the area in the back. And if people start to to walk out to where I am, I'll just say there's something going on over there, and I don't know if you want me to go check it out, or if one of you senior people wants to go.
When she said that, I said, no, you aren't going anywhere. I tell Mr. Red, why don't you go check that? I'll keep an eye on her. Mr. Beige, you want to go up top and look out the windows?
Yeah, I can do that.
Mr. Beige, you can work your way up onto the gantry. You can walk along. You'll notice the warehouse is kind of separated into two parts. And there's kind of an archway between the two sections. You pass through the archway to where the window is.
Mm-hmm.
And as you're up on the window kind of looking out, you can see out underneath near the building, there are a couple of what look like tramps, hobos kind of thing, who are rummaging through some crates out there and some bottles. They're very close to the fire exit door, but they're just looking for anything they can lay their hands on, it would appear.
Okay. Just looks like some bums outside.
Where they at?
They're just in the alleyway near the garbage.
What I'll do is I'll give Mr. Green Mrs. Black's gun.
Yep.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna make my way to the fire exit, and I'm gonna try and just make sure it's secure.
Now, just at the point as you go between the two sections, so you just lose sight of Mr. Beige momentarily. It's a fraction of a second you lose sight of him because he's at the window up there. Mr. Beige. Just you, Mr. Beige. You see what looks like a grey apparition, like a shape, moving along the gantry directly towards you. It has the appearance of an old fisherman kind of figure, darkish hair, grey, hands out, sort of outstretched towards you, coming straight at you. Mr. Beige, what do you do? Could you make a luck check for me? If you look carefully at your character sheet on the top right-hand corner, you'll have luck.
Luck. Did not make it.
You miss your step and you fall with a bang onto some pallets about 10 feet beneath. It only wins you. It's not serious. But Mr. Red hears that bang. And as he rounds the corner, he sees Mr. Beige lying on top of the pallets.
I said I had the door. What are you doing?
Oh, well, just lost my step up there. Just be careful when you go up on the gantry.
I'd say that was a pretty nasty spill. You all right?
Take a point of damage, but you're otherwise okay.
Yeah, I've had worse.
I love the way Mr. Beige plays it. It's just so cool. No issues, nothing phases it. Nothing phases. That's nothing.
I want to look up at the catwalk just to double check.
Yeah, you can see where he's been very unlucky actually, because there is a metal railing that runs around the edge of the gantry, but right by where the window is. I mean, it looks solid enough. You kind of can't understand how he's kind of fallen over the top of the. It looks very difficult to have done that, but somehow he's managed it. He's fallen over the top and landed on these pallets. The pallets broke his fall. If it wasn't for those, it could have been a lot more serious. It's almost as if he jumped, to be honest.
I'll keep that in mind as soon
as that bang sound goes off, you hear other bottles outside sort of being knocked around. You get the impression as you sort of quickly listen in what's going on, there are people running away from the warehouse, which is probably no surprise.
Yeah. But I'll still go to the fire escape and just make sure that it's locked and secured. Just give it a bit.
Yeah, it's absolutely locked and secured. It is not a proper fire door. It has definitely been. You have to open it from this side to get out.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I'll then make my way over as I assume Mr. Beige is trying to climb down from the
yeah, they're not very high, 6 foot stacked on top of each other. You can see as you look around that section of the warehouse that there are things under wraps. There are dust sheets, all sorts of stuff. There's one particular one's very large section where a number of dust sheets have been used. You can definitely see that, Mr. Beige.
Okay. So I just climbed down, kind of shuffling along, hurt my leg. I walk back where the car is, where I laid down that beer. And I pick it up and start smelling it. And then I'm going to walk into wherever the kitchen is and dump it out.
Yeah, good call, I think. Yeah,
and then have a cigarette.
The curious Mr. Mr. Gray is he's kind of caught between both locations, really. So he's not really sure. So he's just staying where he's sat at the moment, just trying to observe and see what he can make up. Can't really make much out. What about Miss Black and Mr. Green? What are you two up to? Particularly you, Miss Black, once you hear this sort of commotion and sound.
Yeah, I mean, so when I hear some of like the banging noise of Mr. Beige falling, I kind of jump up off the car and sort of kind of, crane my neck around a little bit to see if I can see what's going on. And I mean, I don't really say much. Or
you still look quite shocked by the earlier incident.
Yeah, yes, definitely. But as they make their way back to the car, I will kind of say to him like, "Oh, did you see it? Did you see it over there? Like, are you guys okay? Like, did you see the baby?"
What?
Mr. Gray says maybe the baby pushed him off.
Oh, could be, man.
Mr. Gray, don't encourage her. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, I can't believe this. We've got a guy falling off the top. We've got her talking about babies. Like, what kind of team is this?
Exactly, Mr. Green. Exactly. What kind of professional team is this? Let me make a note on that.
Yeah, you make your notes.
Thank you. I shall, Miss Black. I shall. Let's find out what happened over there. Mr. Red, is Mr. Beige okay? What happened?
Mr. Red will walk up and sort of say, "Yeah, nothing too much. The homeless people outside got startled. Mr. Beige decided to cause a bit of a ruckus and scare them off with a bit of noise. That's all."
Sure.
Okay. I'll look over at Mr. Beige.
Well, it was effective.
Yeah, kind of as a cloying thing of, don't mention the stumbling off the ledge as opposed to, you intentionally scaring them off.
Yeah. Okay. Let's flashback momentarily to a point in a restaurant 2 weeks before the job was pulled with the boss, Tony. It's a restaurant you've used before. It's a sort of 60s diner kind of affair. Tony obviously will pick up the tab. You're expected to pick up the tip. The reality of the situation, you've had a nice meal. You're getting round to discussing in a bit more detail about the plan. Most of that has been discussed. And Tony is just bringing the kind of conversation to a halt. The only difference is in this flashback is there is no Mr. Gray here. There is you, but there is no Mr. Gray. Okay? I'll play the part, obviously, of Tony.
Are Purple and Silver here as well?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the job at hand. Obviously, it's the usual shares. Any questions?
I got a question.
Oh.
Sure, Miss Black.
How many people do you think are going to be guarding this?
2 men. It's 2 men only, is this all they expect. It should be a simple in and out job, 60 seconds maximum. I expect your professionalism to work out the exact plan. I provided you with the details of what the museum looks like, where they're likely to pull up, what time. And we've kind of got enough inside information to know that that's going to be accurate. So a two-man team.
Kind of a lot of people for just 2 guards, don't you think?
I always like to be over-prepared than under-prepared. If anything goes wrong, of course, your lives are in the hands of everybody else. That's why I'm paying you a very good share for this work.
I mean, it's your money, man.
And
Look,
of course, yes, please, Mr. Red. Why don't you please comment what you think?
I think that bringing Mr. Purple is a risky idea.
Why?
He's a loose cannon. This is a 60-second job, and there are 6 of us here. We don't need that kind of recklessness unless you want this job to go messy super quick.
Hey,
now,
now
you know what?
Mr. Purple has never lost his nerve. I think he's
this ain't about losing nerve. This is about having a steady hand.
I trust him.
I heard him He's getting really close with a girl, and he's even talking on jobs with her on the phone. Now, I don't know about you, but radio blackouts during missions are essential if you don't want to get yourself caught. And Mr. Purple, you've...
Now, I may be an eccentric Australian person, but I'll tell you something, my dear friend. There's no way that I have ever lost my cool. Would you agree, Mr. Green?
100%. You're the luckiest son of a bitch I know.
Exactly.
And
So
we
don't
all
you
know
come
on
with
these heists, we need the lucky son of bitches with us. Because if you aren't lucky, you're screwed.
Exactly. And when was the last time I ever got hurt in a job, huh?
If we
You
don't
have a
want
moment
Slow
to
and
read.
steady wins the race.
Exactly. And you have a momentary flashback of seeing poor Mr. Purple's brains blown out on the street, just to remind you. The first bullet that was shot went straight through his head.
Everybody's luck comes up someday.
It always comes up as zero somewhere along the line.
I mean,
So is that
if
that
we
good
don't
enough? Sorry, go ahead, Miss.
if we don't want to bring unlucky people, then what are we doing with Mr. Beige over here?
Exactly. Does that quash your fears, Mr. Red? You happy now? Mr. Green's vouched for me, and Tony likes me, don't you, Tony? Tony vouches for him.
Look, I'm
I
a
question this
professional.
Mr. Silver Kid. These young ones, man. Including you, Mr. Red, and you, Miss Black. You guys are
Mr.
green.
Silverpipes. It's going to be my last job. And after this is the last thing I'll do for my friend Tony. After that, it's finished. No more for me.
No pun
I think my
intended,
luck-
but these kids are green. I'm just saying.
Look, Mr. Green, I might be young, but I'm not scared to do what needs to be done. Okay?
All right, as long as you can keep a level head, just like Mr. Purple, I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, he said I intend to keep my head down.
Mr. Red sort of says, I'm always up for the job. My suits ain't cheap, and my time is valuable. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. You know, I know I'm young, but, you know, Versace don't wrinkle on bad jobs.
I totally understand where you're coming from, Mr. Red, and I respect that a great deal. Miss Black, just to remind us all, what is the password when the ferryman comes?
Bananas.
You know, Miss Black, you've obviously not been listening all the way through this job. I think I've been very clear and very laid out the plan very precisely. I've noticed that you don't seem to be making a lot of notes. Mr. Green, could you be kind enough, please, to fill her in and exactly what the password is, please? It's certainly not bananas.
Yeah, not a problem. Of course, it's money back ribs. Makes no sense. It's perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Somebody was listening and paying attention and making notes. I respect that.
Maybe we should bring a note taker with us.
I know the guy.
You see Tony go, that's a very, very good idea. I might well do that, he says at some point. I'll tell you, I may well consider that suggestion as a good one.
Tony, you're not putting us near the docks again, are you?
It's the safest place to go, my friend.
You know, I hate that place.
I know, but it's safe. 12, just hang in there till 12 p.m. Man will come across, give you the code, money back ribs. Right, Mr. Green?
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
Excellent. See, somebody's listening. Miss Black, password?
Money back ribs.
Glad we're all on the same page
Yep.
now. So that man will come, collect the 4 boxes, and you'll be taken across the bay there. You'll be brought to me myself at that point. You'll get your cut, your share, as was already agreed. I hope you're happy with the remuneration. You'll get plenty of your fine suits with that.
Mr. Beige, when the last time you were at the docks, is that where you happened to get caught?
Yeah, that was a slight incident. Unfortunate.
I understand your apprehension then.
Let's phase back to the warehouse. Pick back up where we left off. Several incidents that happened quite quickly. Who would like to chime in first?
Is Miss Black still sitting by the car?
Yes, she is.
All right. Where's everybody else? Mr. Red is
Worked his way back towards that area.
okay.
Yeah, so I'm adjacent to the car, but kind of like from the angle of the back room towards. So I'm kind of like 90 degrees to where the car's facing.
I was in between Miss Black and Mr. Gray, probably somewhere near the van, probably.
Okay. Yeah, I go back in the back room and dump out that beer and then come back out, and I'm just standing by the doorway smoking.
Hey, Mr. Red, did you get a chance to check my car?
Not yet. Just getting to that.
That'd be great.
Hmm.
I toss
Go on,
him the
Mr. Red.
keys. I toss him
Mr.
the
Red,
keys.
you've obviously got something on your mind, Mr. Red. Why don't you speak? Tell us what you're thinking.
As I catch the keys that have been thrown to me, there's too many bits and pieces of this job that don't make sense. Things not lining up. You don't reckon that the boss set us up on this the whole time, do you?
What would be in it for him? What would he gain out of it?
That's just the question. I mean, a lot of us haven't worked together before. Lots of us are relatively young for a job like this, and there's so many of us. And Mr. Green, if you don't mind me saying, you're not exactly in the peak of what I'd think you were capable of. This might simply be, it might simply be the boss's way of getting rid of, I guess, loose ends.
Culling the whole herd is what you're saying here, isn't it, Mr. Red?
Well, yeah, back at home, that's exactly what happens, you know? You cut out one cow that's sick in order to save everyone else.
What if you made a deal with the feds?
I doubt it, you guys. The boss would never set me up on something like that.
He's got nothing to gain and everything to lose. It's not the boss. It's one of us. I got to say, says Mr. Gray. It has to be. But no police have come, so maybe you were right in the first place, Mr. Red, that it was Mr. Purple or Mr. Silver that have caused the problem. Maybe.
You know what I do notice, though, is that the only person who keeps talking about who turned in who is Mr. Red. He's the only one who wants to talk about it, and he keeps pointing fingers at different people. Oh, it's Miss Black. Oh, it's Mr. Green. Maybe it was Mr. Purple. Well, I don't know, Mr. Red. Maybe
it was Mr. Beige in the library with the candlestick.
He's never accused me, said Mr. Gray. He's always been pretty decent with myself. I've never heard him really.
Yeah, because you're taking notes over there, and you're going to tell the boss. No, I don't know about Mr. Red. Maybe I should check Mr. Green's car.
Sure. Why don't you do that, says Mr. Gray.
Mr. Red will throw the keys to Miss Black, and also sort of straighten up himself and say, I'd also like to point out that I haven't said anyone's done anything. All I did was put some gun shells on a table. If any of you have feelings of guilt, then you keep that to yourself.
Indeed.
Miss Black will take the keys from Mr. Red, and she'll kind of walk around the outside of the car and then jump in, and she'll check kind of the areas between where, you usually have like in the...
You'll notice, Miss Black, that Mr. Gray is really paying attention to everything you're doing. So he's really studying you. He's moved right over to the car. He's just watching everything you're doing. Making notes.
So I'll check kind of like the trim section on the inside of the car to make sure there's nothing wedged in between that area. And I'll check that all around the car on the inside. And then outside of the car, I'll just kind of check the edges underneath and then peek underneath.
Hey, Miss Black, usually a bug has a magnet on it. You might want to check all the underside of the metal pieces.
That's what I'm doing too. Look, I'm being thorough.
I turn to Mr. Gray. I say, do you think she's like making up this baby stuff to kind of distract us from the double crossing or something?
I don't really know. He says it's possible. She's odd. She's acting odd.
Very much so.
Stress definitely getting to her. There's no doubt about that. While Mr. Gray and yourself are kind of distracted for a moment, Miss Black, while you're around the trims of the car, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, you're working your way around the trim. Do you go inside the car as well? Check out inside as well? Glove compartment, box, those kind of stuff?
Yeah, I'll check the inside first and then do the
As you kind of climb in to the front initially, and you kind of, Mr. Green and Mr. Gray have just started talking, sitting in the driver's seat, just out the side, the shot of the window, so those two can't see it, is a small child. This is maybe a boy of 3 or 4, and he's got a little boat in his hands. And as you kind of step into the car, you're shocked to see him. He kind of turns and you can see him holding up the boat to you. Could you make a spot hidden roll?
What am I making it for?
Spot hidden roll.
I totally made it.
Perfect. Okay. You can see that the little boat's a wooden boat which would have 2 little masts on it, little sails. There are people inside the boat, and you can see at the front of the boat, it looks like a man in yellow who is like the ferry man or maybe the boat captain. And you can see little people in the windows of the boat, and they match everybody except the figure of Mr. Purple is broken. The figure of Mr. Silver is also broken. There is no Mr. Grey in there, but everybody else is in there, or at least pictured in the boat. And just as you see this scene, and Mr. Grey and Mr. Green's attention is brought back to you, the little boy just disappears. Could you just make a sanity roll for me, please? I'm sorry I'm picking on you, but it is awfully brilliant.
No, it's great.
I was going to say, at this point, I feel like getting shot. I actually got off easy.
Yeah.
Mr. Beige is unflappable, so...
Hey, I'll be right back, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
I got a 57.
And your score is?
So I missed.
Okay, you drop another couple of points of sanity as this apparition disappears in front of your face. Do you say anything to the others or nothing?
So as I saw the kid with the boat, and I saw the different, people showing up, I kind of like leaned in a little bit to look at the boat, and then all of a sudden somebody kind of said something outside the car, and I looked away and he was gone. And I kind of just back up a little bit and jolt backwards for a second, but then I kind of shrug it off and try and remember for a minute what I was doing. And
you see the ever-present Mr. Grey looking in through the window. Is everything okay?
Yeah. I'm making sure I didn't miss anything. Of course.
Oh, excellent. Well, you're doing a good job, he says. He makes another note. You can clearly see that he's obviously scribbling away, as always. Perfect, he says. Good job. Good job.
So I take a look at Mr. Grey now. We've never done a job together, right?
No, that's right. We've never had the pleasure of each other's company before.
So as I'm watching him, does he look familiar? Is there any, have I seen him before?
You know, there is that familiarity about him. There is that kind of feeling that although you're certainly positive that your paths have never obviously crossed in a job before, there's just something about him that's ever so familiar. And you just cannot put your finger initially on what that is at this stage. But there's certainly something about him that's, I'm sure we've met.
Mr. Grey, we ever worked together? Or you look familiar?
I don't think we've ever worked together in a sense, but I think it's possible our paths may have crossed before. You do look familiar to me, but I can't pull on exactly when or where we've met.
Interesting.
Perhaps no, he says, no, that wouldn't be the case. He says, no, I've certainly not worked with you on any of those jobs. I'm sorry, I can't help you any further, he says.
What about in Reno? Were you there?
No.
You done any time?
of course, we've all done a bit of time. I think I've done a similar amount to yourself.
Yeah.
Mr. Red, have you done time?
Oh, he's still wet behind the ears.
Fortunately, I ain't been sloppy enough to get caught just yet, and I don't intend to make this the first time.
I like that. Cocky but self-assured. There's a certain likability to that. What about you, Miss Black? Have you ever been caught? Perhaps institutionalized?
No, never. My mind is as sound as ever.
Mind?
Hey, Miss Gray, says, sorry, Miss Black, says Mr. Gray. Maybe I can help. I've got some medical training. Maybe I could help you feel a little bit more at ease.
What do you have in mind?
Maybe we just go and sit down in one of the offices. I'll just talk you through a few things that might help calm your mind. It would be maybe beneficial to you. I don't know. It's up to you. Unless you feel too jumpy, of course, too stressed out, perhaps unsecure of yourself.
No. We can go talk or whatever it is that you want to do. That's fine.
I just want to make sure Mr. Red and Mr. Beige are okay with that. You're right if I just go and have a quick chat with Mrs. Black, Miss Black?
I'll look at Mr. Beige.
Where at?
I'll nod.
I'll see what I can do to help her a little bit. She looks a bit out of sorts. Maybe we go over to the office where you had this incident. That might help. What do you think, Miss Black? Could you cope with it? We walk back into the office together?
Yeah. It's fine. I'm cool.
Okay, good. Okay, let's take a couple of chairs with us because I don't think there was anything in there. They had the table, but I don't believe there were any chairs, were there?
No, I don't think so. I'll walk over to the kitchen and grab a couple chairs from that, and I'll move them over to the office.
Mr. Gray isn't very chivalrous. He lets you carry the 2 chairs over.
It's okay. I'm young. I got this.
Yeah.
Oh, did Mrs. Black find anything from the Mr. Green's car? I will ask if she doesn't say anything.
No, I mean, it's fine. A little dirty, but it's fine.
Okay, excellent. Right. Okay, you make your way over to the office with Mr. Gray. And once you reach the office, put 2 chairs down. He asks you to sit in one chair. He sits in the opposite you, but he closes the door. Once the door is closed, if everybody else but myself and Miss Black could just stay on the line, if you could just mic or mute your mics for about 2 minutes, is that okay? Grab a drink for the refreshment.
Give us a hand signal.
I'll give you a thumbs up when we're ready. Okay.
Perfect.
Is that all right?
Oh,
Yep.
Perfect.
Okay, Miss Black. Mr. Gray kind of looks at you, shows you the notebook. As you look at the notebook, you'll notice that it seems to be the play. It seems to be about a play called Riverside Dogs. It's got everything that's happened in the story to this point. Everything that all of you have said, the whole story that's played out right up to this moment, and even the last words that were ushered between yourself, is in the book. He hands it to you.
Are you writing down everything?
It even talks about where the camera should be, the film lights, who should step in and why. Everything is in the book. He hands it to you.
What's going on here? Like I don't understand.
Read it. He said, please read the book. Look at the book.
I'll take a look at it and
as you start to look at the book, he says this. Along the shore, the cloud waves break. The twin suns sink beneath the lake. The shadows lengthen in Carcosa. Strange is the night where black stars rise and strange moons circle through the skies. But stranger still is lost Carcosa. Songs that the Hades shall sing, where flap the tatters of the king, must die unheard in dim Carcosa. Song of my soul, my voice is dead. Die thou unsung as tears unshed, shall dry and die in lost Carcosa. As this happens, could you mute your mic and I'll give you a thumbs up when to come back in, but you'll just have to give me a few moments while I bring the others in. Is that okay?
Yep.
I'm going to put my thumbs up for everybody else to return and hope they can see us. They've all disappeared, but I hope they do. So if you mute, thank you, well done. I'll wait to see if everybody else rejoins me.
I'm here.
Excellent. Just waiting for everybody else to join me.
Okay.
Just waiting for our dear friend, Mr. Beige. Mr. Red, you okay? Excellent.
Oh, good. I just have a cookie.
Perfect.
Beige is back. We're good.
Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. From this point on, Mr. Grey never existed. He was never here. He's never been in the story. He had nothing to do with it. Okay, he has never been here. The only person taking notes has always been Miss Black. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Mr. Grey was never, ever here.
Okay.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Right, I'm going to bring back in Miss Black. Hope she can see me. Or you can give her a nudge, Lee.
She probably went to the bathroom. She'll come straight back.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, she'll come straight back. I'll let her know.
So for continuity and purpose of story, he's never been here. He never was here. In fact, he was never even in the initial meeting, as you may recall.
Interesting. Okay. And we all know that. She doesn't.
You all know that. Poor Miss Black has no idea what's about to come.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay? I bet she'll love DMing with me, won't she? Love playing this. Ah, there she is.
You're good, Paula.
Can you hear us okay?
Yep.
Okay. As I described where it left off.
Okay. I'm gonna take the book.
Yes.
I kind of stand up and back up a little bit, heading towards the door. And Miss Black will actually open up the door and yell out and say, "Guys, there's something wrong with Mr. Grey." Like,
remember that there's no sign now of Mr. Grey for you at all. He's not. As far as you're concerned, he just left the room moments before.
Who?
and he's not there. He just like disappeared.
Yeah, he should be there outside the door. He'd only had a few seconds head start on you when he closed the door behind. You've just come out and you're calling out for who?
Just everybody else that's out there. I'm just
Okay.
like, hey guys, there's something wrong with Mr. Grey. Like, I don't know, you guys.
Do you mean Mr. Beige?
No, guys, Mr. Grey, you know, weird guy, taking notes, like, you know, like,
I
oh,
turned
okay,
to red.
boss about
See?
that,
She's crazy,
you
man.
know?
She colorblind?
Maybe.
Miss Black, are you on some kind of substance that we need to be aware of?
We need to check her for scripts, man.
The only person carrying a notebook, I'm just putting this in as a GM now. The only person carrying a notebook is yourself, Miss Black. Just so you know, you've got a notebook in your hand.
Yeah, like I took okay, so I got Mr. Gray's notebook, you guys, and like look at it. This is ridiculous. I'll actually walk over to Mr. Beige and
Okay,
I'll open
perfect.
up the notebook and I'm
Perfect.
like,
Yeah,
look at
this should prove everything, shouldn't it? This should prove everything, Miss Black. This is from me now, only as a DM, okay? I'll always be talking as DM. Could you just mute your mic for a split second, stay there? Give me a thumbs. You see me? Hopefully she sees me. Okay, Mr. Beige, she shows you a notebook. It's just scribbles of nonsense, absolute rubbish. It's just meaningless. Whatever she's been scribbling, it's not even words. It's ridiculous. Most of the stuff she's writing, if there is a word to be made out, is Carcosa. Carcosa. I'm going to Carcosa. That's the only thing that's scribbled in that book. Okay? Lots of meaningless. I'll just bring her back in. She's doing a stand-up job. Are you back with us?
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you, Miss Black. You've just handed the notebook momentarily showing Mr. Beige. He's looking at it.
Yep. So I open it up. I show it like I'm shoving it right in his face. Like, Mr. Gray is nuts. Like, I don't know what's going on here, but like it looks like there's cameras staged in different places, and I'll start to point at a couple of like the spots that I noted that there were cameras stationed, and I'll start to walk over to those places, and I'm just shoving it right in his face.
What do these notes say? It's just gibberish. Your penmanship is terrible.
He's writing down everything, you guys, like this whole time. Like, where did he go? Where is Mr. Gray? Like, I want to talk to Mr. Gray.
I want to know where Mr. Gray is too. I want to talk to Mr. Gray.
I'm going to start walking around like the warehouse, almost like I'm trying to figure out if he's hiding somewhere.
Tony should have sent us his psychiatrist with us.
As she points at each of the cameras, does she point like directly, almost like knowingly at each of the cameras? And are the cameras active?
It's a good shout. None of the cameras are active in this warehouse for obvious reasons, because it's meant to be a safe house, so they've been disabled. The only way they would work is if you were to reactivate them effectively, and probably have some old VHS tapes to make it work, because it is that old.
All right. At this point, I'm going to cock my revolver.
Yeah,
and
that's a wise move.
And point it at Mrs. Black.
Right.
Now, Miss Black, I'm gonna have to ask you to stop right there.
What are you doing? So I'm holding on to the book with one hand. I've got both of my hands up as Mr. Red pulls his gun out on me. And I'm just like completely confused at this point. Like, I don't understand what's going on and why they're so calm and reserved about the notebook.
Mr. Beige, what has Mrs. Black been writing this whole time in her book?
Gibberish. Something about, the only word I could make out was something about Carcosa or something. I don't know. It makes no sense.
What does Carcosa mean, Mrs. Black? And why have you written it down in your book?
What do you mean, what does Carcosa mean? I don't write anything in the book. That was Mr. Gray.
Miss Black, to you and only you, you can see that every single word, as far as you're concerned, in that book, as soon as they're speaking it, it's filling in the book exactly like a script in a play. It's mapping out in that book. They just can't see it, Miss Black.
This is like it's a magical book. You know, like it's recording everything that's happening right now. Everything that's happening is going on in this book. Like, you can read it, Mr. Red. Are you smart enough to read?
The figures, the dumbest one here would say that, right?
Mr. Red sort of says, well, that book's about to tell what's going to happen. Then I suggest you tell me what I'm about to do, because right now I'm sitting on a razor's edge.
He does look very trigger happy.
So at that point in time, I'm actually going to look at the book and I'm going to see what...
Okay, what is the next thing that actually happens, Mr. Red?
Oh, but I want, you know what? I'm going to let Paula decide.
Cool.
I'm going to let Paula decide.
And don't worry, Paula. Paula, do not worry. Even if you decide to go the ultimate sacrifice, full respect for you, I've still got something for you to do. Do not worry. And you will love what comes next. Do not worry at all. Choose.
I'm going to say that it says right here that all the lights go out and a gun goes off.
That is exactly what happens at that moment in time. The lights do actually go off, surprisingly. and your gun does go off. Now, I presume you were pointing this at Miss Black, obviously.
Yes.
Would you like to make a roll for me, please, on your weapon? And you'll have noted down next to your weapon what kind of damage it does as well.
All right. So for my damage on the revolver is a D10, I believe.
Fabulous. This could be very bad for her.
So let me grab a.
Very bad indeed, but that's good. It's very good. She's doing a great.
By the way,
job.
I do want to take this. It's not. I'm not sponsored or anything like that, but I do want to do a shameless plug for my dice. I have.
Hey, plug away. Why don't you?
I have Elder Dice from Infinite Black, and it comes in like this little spell book with all of the dice.
Nice.
Yeah, very nice.
And they're very cool. And they have like the Cthulhu mark for like, the D20s and stuff.
Oh,
and
if they want to kindly donate some to me for such a bang up job tonight, and Miss Black, we're open for that. We're open for that.
Mr. Red is so fancy over there.
They're red dice too.
So trendy.
It matches the thing he chose.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
ahead. Presumably, it's just one
The murder
initial
dice.
shot. Yes, Mr.
Correct. It is just one initial shot. So I'm going to be rolling my Cthulhu dice for this shot.
Fabulous.
All right. So that's a 1.
That's a critical hit. That's fantastic, Mr. Red. Would you like to roll 2d10 for me, Mr. Red, please?
All right. Well, I've rolled one.
This is clearly a headshot, Mr. Red.
All right. That is a 16.
Fantastic. We know that Miss Black is lying on the ground with a bullet straight through her head. Now, Miss Black, I'm going to have to come off screen momentarily. I'm going to send something through to you. Okay. Read it over carefully, and I guarantee you, in a few minutes, you will have a very important part to play. Okay. So bear with me while I just hopefully send this over to her.
On Facebook?
So just going off for a split second. Hopefully you can still hear me. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
We're all still.
Fantastic. Just give me 2 seconds. I should have this sent over. I apologize for going off for a moment, but it's important.
Also, sorry, Paula.
It's okay.
It's the first time I've actually rolled these dice for an actual Cthulhu game. Now I don't want to ever use them again.
No, you need to. They're great. You just need to shoot things that you should shoot.
Yes, that's true. I should just be pointing them at bad guys, not.
Okay, I've just sent a little something over, and that should be making its way to you personally.
I am
Have
in
a
charge.
read over that carefully. Give me a little thumbs up when you feel confident and comfortable with that information.
Oh, look at that. Good job.
It's almost like I'm a professional.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Miss Black?
Sorry, I'm just looking it over right now.
Okay, take a few minutes. Do not worry. Okay. If we
Are
need
we fumbling
to,
around in the dark still?
I think what we'll do is, if the other three for a moment, because it is quite a difficult piece to take on, if they could mute, I'll give you a thumbs up when it's safe to return, just so I can talk to the Miss Black. Thank you. Okay, Miss Black. Okay, read it for the benefit of the audience.
Okay, so it says, I'm sorry to hear that your character just died.
Isn't that kind? How nice is that?
I know, so nice. You now take on a new role, that of Robert or Roberta. I was going to go by Meldrum, an independent filmmaker and actress. Yes, that is the same name as your last character, Redon. Roberta is a single woman who is alone except for her cat in a flat reading through a script entitled Dockside Dogs. The script tells you the story of everything that has happened in the game up to this point, from the opening scene to this moment. You've been reading for a couple of hours now. At times your concentration has drifted and you found yourself talking to the characters in the story, even imagining yourself there in the warehouse with them. Your agent, Anthony Gray, supplied you with the script. You can no longer tell what's real and what's not, so much so that everything in the script seems to be becoming real. That is one hell of a script. You really need to meet the author and make a deal with him. Gray has arranged a meeting already. Apparently the guy, Mr. King, not the Mr. King, surely, lives across the bay. These characters around you, the other player characters, are great. Don't lose them, as they would be wonderful in the film you hope to make. In fact, they should come with you to the meeting, too.
You're currently observing them from the location where there is, in the second half of the warehouse, there is a large section of like tarpaulins wrapped over something. That's actually an old 1968 Firebird red car, the same kind of car that was used in a classic Stephen King film. But I'll leave the audience to discover exactly what that car is. But you're currently sort of peeking through a small slit where the sheets do not meet properly and observing the group from distance. Occasionally you hear what they're saying, but you seem to have a knowledge exactly of what's going on. No matter what they say, wherever they are in the building, you're able to observe it and see it. So far, you haven't shown your hand. Are you going to walk out and introduce yourself? Or are you going to stay hidden for the moment?
So I'm in the car.
Yeah.
And I've seen everything that's been going on this whole time. And I'm still the same character, but I would just be Roberta.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You were always called by your parents Robert. They always wanted a boy, just so you know, even though you've changed it. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Are you all right? Are you staying hidden for the moment, or are you going to reveal yourself?
Yeah, I'll stay hidden for a second. Let me think about it for a minute.
Fantastic. Thank you. Sorry to keep you waiting.
Oh, it's okay.
Miss Black lies on the floor. A pool of blood is quickly forming on the ground after the gunshot's gone off. And no sooner had the lights gone off than they flickered back on again.
Dude, why'd you shoot her?
She was already unstable.
I mean, I agree, but she could have been the perfect fall guy. And if she tried to rat on any of us, we could just say she's crazy.
Look, I ain't taking risks like that. And besides, we've already got the messy task of having to deal with that cop. This way we can at least say that the cops shot her and they killed each other in the line of duty.
You think Tony's going to believe that?
Look, if I'm being honest, I'll take the fall for that if Tony doesn't buy it. But
that's his kid. But you just smoked.
That's bad news, man.
I thought they were friends.
Yeah, I thought she was friends with like his son or something, and thought they had like a thing going on.
You mean this is the boss's kid?
Maybe future daughter-in-law.
Close enough.
How are you feeling now, Mr. Red?
Well, it looks like I'm going for a trip to Barbados when all this is done. Well, I suppose what happens here is what the boss finds out. Now, look, I did what I did because whatever's happening here, she's definitely not someone that would have had the crew's back.
No, she was unstable.
I agree with that.
All right. We agree this needed to be done. And I think you're right when we say that the boss is.
You can hear some banging from that car again. The old boots going against the side of it. That person's come round again. They start smacking the inside.
Should we just go finish that guy too?
I mean, we're on a roll.
All right. Let's go deal with that guy.
I'll stay back and let them do that. In fact, as they go that direction.
You can open the boot whenever you want because obviously, it's not a problem.
I'll probably go and see if I can unlock the goods in the van while they go to handle that guy.
Yeah, the goods in the van, the door to the back is open. It was previously opened by Mr. Red. He basically took a small explosion on the back doors has caused them to remain obviously open. You broke those open some time ago. So you can have a look. There's still obviously 4 metal caskets in there.
Are they locked?
What's interesting to you, Mr. Green, is you kind of think the last time you saw them, you thought they were like they were definitely locked or closed too, but now they seem to be all 4 seem to be open as if somebody's gone through them. It seems a bit odd.
What do I see in there when I?
It looks like pearls, small crowns, necklaces, that kind of stuff. Antiques, all antiques.
Okay, so I take a couple small handfuls and put them in some of my pockets real quick. But
Sure.
before I do it, I just make sure they're preoccupied.
Yeah.
with
Their
the-
attention is elsewhere at this moment in time.
And then
That's
I'll
fine.
probably go walk. I'll get out of the van and I'll go walk to look at the body. I'll say, "Hey guys, I'm gonna go check that body real quick." And if I get out of sight, I'll probably stash some of the pearls in the desk or something.
Yeah, you'll notice that all the pool of blood is sort of running towards the sort of center of the warehouse. To be honest with you, it's running towards the middle of the warehouse between the two sections. Although it's only a small line of blood.
Yeah.
But needless to say, it's interesting. You're at the trunk at this stage, Mr. Red, Mr. Beige.
All right. I'll wait for Mr. Beige to open the trunk of his car.
Yeah, I open it slowly and
Yep. You can be standing over it, Mr. Red.
All right. I'll grab, assuming that this guy is kind of almost hogtied, his
Yeah,
hands
absolutely.
tied in his back.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm going to grab him by the scruff of his collar and the belt on his waist, and just basically heave him out of the car. I'm not a very strong person, so I'm mostly using leverage to just get him out of the trunk and onto the ground.
I think you have all the advantages. I don't think it's going to be too difficult to achieve. You're going to be able to get him down onto the ground, whether he wants to go or not.
My strength is 9. I have like noodle
You
arms.
get the feeling he's fully aware about what's about to happen, but there's nothing he can actually do about it. He obviously looks at you with those kind of desperation that you would have in that final moment, but he knows what's coming. He's already heard a gunshot a few moments before, and seeing a body on the ground is probably an affirmation of what is about to happen to him.
All right. Well, I'll put him up against the side of the actual armored vehicle.
Yep.
And I'll say, okay, Mr. Green. I'll say, do you have Mrs. Black's gun?
You probably have to peer around the corner to see Mr. Green at this stage, and you'll see that Mr. Green is kind of just hunched over 4 open boxes that are now open inside the security van.
I don't. Right. I mean, it's not that I don't care what he's doing. It's just that I'm preoccupied. So
Yeah.
I will say, you still got Mrs. Black's gun or what?
I thought you had the gun.
I gave it to you. Remember?
Do I have the gun?
You do, yeah.
Oh, I guess I do. I'm sorry. I hand it over with my gloved hands.
Yep. I take it. I will put the gun and sort of try to measure out, like adjusting my stance to be kind of roughly the height of where Mrs. Black was, and I'll tell Mr. Beige, if you can just get our friend on his feet.
okay.
Mr. Beige helps him, the officer Nash, to his feet.
I'll
Still hog-tied
again,
with his
take
hands behind his back. Yep.
And
you finish him off?
Well, instinctively, I was about to, like, just, easy, clean shots. And I was like, come to think of it, Ms. Black wasn't a good shot now, was she? And I'm going to shoot
I
him in
yell,
the leg.
nope.
I'm going to shoot
Okay,
him in the
Mr.
leg.
Green. Yeah, Mr. Green pipes up. You make the shot, you do hit him in the leg. Mr. Green is now shouting out to you. Go ahead, Mr. Green.
Right. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. What'd you say?
Yeah, she was an awful shot.
Yeah.
You can see the officer Nash is rolling around on the ground, clutching his leg. Can we just see how good a shot that was, actually? Make a roll. I mean, it won't be difficult. I add 20 to your skill,
misses
so whatever
the
your
leg.
skill is. Add 20. You should have every opportunity.
Yeah. I got a 17 on that one.
No problem. Just above the knee. Perfect.
Cool. I'll basically take 3 shots in a similar fashion before I finally plant one center mass.
Oh, that's so beautiful. What a vivid scene. Okay, yeah, lovely. Okay, Mr. Red. Job done. Officer Nash dead. Then number 3.
I'll then stash it on the body of Mrs. Black.
Yeah.
Nice thinking, Red, as I step out of the back, step around and pat him on the back. I probably would have done a clean shot, but I like your thinking, man. You're going
Make a
places.
spot hidden roll, Mr. Green, from your position. because you're higher up than the others.
Yep. Ooh. My dice weren't ready. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I failed bad.
That's fine. Carry on.
So yeah, I'll be like, good shot there, bud. I wouldn't have thought to do that when I was your age, but that usually comes with experience and wisdom. You're going places in this business, I can tell.
Thanks, Mr. Green.
So, which one of you guys opened the loot chests in there?
I thought it was you.
No, I went in there because it was open. All the goods are still there, but I thought it was locked earlier.
Mr. Red was over there, but you just unlocked it, right?
Thinking back, at no point was anyone really alone with the loot except Mr. Green, right?
Correct. And you've all can account for each other very, very well. There's no way Mr. Green could have opened all 4 of those boxes in the small amount of time that's gone on before you saw him. No way.
I'm going to take a few steps back away from the armored van. There's one place I hadn't checked, and admittedly at this point, Mr. Red kind of realizes that, and very swiftly he pulls out his piece and aims on top of the van, the locked the van, and steps back so he can have perspective to see if there's anyone or anything on the roof of the armored car.
That's a really good point. There isn't anybody on the roof, but you also can make a spot hidden as you're more acutely aware that there's something's not right and you're trying to look for it.
All right. My spot hidden is 46, and I get a 92. I
no, nothing at all. Unfortunately, no. That's fine. So again, there's nothing up there, of course, but you are wise to look around. You are obviously a bit concerned there might be somebody else here. Would be a fair shout.
So while this is going on,
yes,
can I sneak out of the car
yes, you can
as possible?
Yes, you can. I won't say anything about who you are, but yes, I shall say yes, that's possible. You don't need to make a roll. You can kind of move over to between the warehouse and the second part of the warehouse, just trying to get a bit of vision.
So I'm actually going to sneak out of the car, and I want to go up
onto the gantry.
And I want to walk around to the other side.
I'm gonna ask, the only person who hasn't made a roll is Mr. Beige. So just to see if you manage to do this, because the stairs are all metal, the gantries are all metal. We'll see if Mr. Beige spots anything. Just a straight roll, please, Mr. Beige. If not, you're able to walk all the way around the gantries where you want to observe.
Spot hidden?
Yeah.
Okay. Not with a 76.
That's perfect. So you make your way all the way around the top of the gantry to wherever you lie. Do you want to just be observing from up there?
Yeah, so I'm going to be by the between the window and that stairwell.
Gotcha. Yeah, perfect.
The door and the roller door. So I want to be kind of over in that area right next to that stairwell, trying to get a little bit closer to the action.
Sure. You've got a good vision. It's quite dark up there. And, something we haven't really talked about at all is time. Nobody's asked, no one's queried for time. It's getting late. How late? Well, the one thing the boss had said originally in the meeting was, no mobile phones of any kind. Obviously, phones were very primitive then in the 80s. And not to bring any sort of identification or watches or anything like that. So time is a little tricky to tell. But it must be about 10, a couple of hours left maybe before the ferryman gets here. Maybe. Can't be long.
So Mr. Green will probably sit on the hood of Beige's car. And
everybody's sitting on my car.
They like your car.
Yeah, it's perfect height, man. It's got lots of room. Why don't you have a seat right next to me? And I kind of pat on the hood. Like, don't worry, I told you I'll take all the dents out of it. We'll get it fixed up. Maybe get you some nice new white walls, some real nice white walls. Maybe 120 spoke, rims or something for you. And I turn to Red and I'd be like, are you done looking on top of the truck thing over there? I mean,
yeah, not seeing anything. Red will put his gun away. there is still one little piece left, which is, of course, that Miss Black was killed with his gun. Basically, what he's trying to stage is that they were interrogating this guy. He grabbed the gun, took a shot, but Miss Black put him down, but he, managed to get a lucky shot off.
Yeah, so it was his gun that killed her rather than yours.
Correct. That's
Sure.
basically what he's putting it up. So he's gonna do what he normally does after murdering people, and that is he's gonna make himself a hot chocolate with just a dash of coffee in it, just to kind of get the sugar rush, that hit of caffeine as he goes to the kitchen and sort of makes himself one.
There's a couple of things you notice as you walk over to the kitchen, Mr. Red. The first thing is the kitchen area. You've been there before. Okay, it was only albeit very briefly, but you were taken in there momentarily to be initially treated because of the wound that you received by Miss Black, as far as you can remember, because there was never a Mr. Grey.
Correct.
And the room, just the dimensions of it, just seem a little odd to you. You thought it was a bit bigger than this? Maybe it's the pressure of the situation. It just seems a bit off.
Do I see the blood where I was bleeding, obviously, on the table?
No, you don't actually. That's also missing here. That doesn't seem right. There should still be some on the floor for obvious reasons. It wasn't mopped up, cleaned away. Should be even some bandages and stuff like that, maybe, or something to mop up the initial blood before they use tape on you, really. No, nothing at all. Sorry?
I'll actually check the wound as well and just sort of feel it.
It still hurts very badly, but obviously the blood has stopped.
I'll go look at the med kit, the first aid kit that's there, and just quickly inspect
there's
it.
some issues with that as well. There's things that should be there that you remember seeing in the first aid kit, pair of scissors, extra rolls of bandages that weren't used, things like that. They seem to be missing as well. You're noticing as well that the dimensions of the actual building just seem off to you as well. Something isn't right here. Something just doesn't seem right. As you're sort of taking us all in, make another spot hidden roll.
That's better. I mean, better in the sense that I succeed, but so my spot hidden is 46 and I got a 43.
Yeah, you kind of catch a glimpse of what you think up on the gantry. There's somebody there's actually observing everybody from up there. You can just catch a glimpse of them momentarily.
Has this individual noticed me?
No, not initially.
I'm going to attempt to sneak up onto the rising landing through the gantry.
You can try to do this. So go ahead. Make a roll.
Okay. So sneak.
Like a stealth kind of thing.
Yeah. So that's an 11. So I succeed on.
You should. You've done an excellent job moving up there, and you should be able to move up to this person with them out seeing you. But I have to say, that person will be aware of your every movement for a particular reason, as we've discussed. Sure. So how do you want to handle it as this person is sneaking up towards you? You know it's coming. So what do you do? I'm kind of looking at you here. Miss Black. Or Robbie, or Roberta.
So I'm gonna kind of like, sit there and pretend like they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing.
Perfect. Okay. What do you look like to this person as they sort of move up towards you? Could you describe yourself?
So I am early 20s. I have, let's say dark curly hair. I have this great, outfit on, this awesome black shell suit, and I am standing there holding a large booklet of papers that I'm slowly turning the page as you're moving towards me, and I'm looking down at the page, I'm looking at you, I'm looking at the the people around the car, and I'm just like, kind of standing pretty still. I look quite similar to Miss Black, actually.
In some ways.
Yes.
I think Mr. Redwood immediately think that it might have been Miss Black.
But you can still see her
And-
body on the ground, Mr. Red.
He I'm not going to approach any closer, but I am going to draw my sniper rifle at this point and train it on the new figure and
Yep.
say, Mr. Green and Mr. Beige, we seem to have a visitor.
Perfect. Okay. So you'd sort of unshoulder this rifle, bring it up and point it on. Okay, perfect. Okay, Mr. Green, Mr. Beige, you're aware that Mr. Red has spotted someone up on the gantry.
So before he had
As
said
you
that,
kind
I
of
would,
move out into the light to kind of see what he's seeing, you will be able to see a figure that's up there.
so before he had said that, I would have probably said, "Hey, Mr. Beige, Mr. Red seems kind of cold-blooded. I mean, she was treating him for his wound, and he basically killed her. Like, what do you think? Maybe he's the one, and he confessed when his wound was getting patched up or something?"
I don't know. He's kind of a loose cannon. Shot off enough rounds, I'm sure the whole friggin' block is heard by now.
Right.
And at this point, you can hear him calling to you both once again, and you can see he's got his sniper rifle trained on something up on the gantry.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Not again, Mr.
Yeah,
Beige. Go.
You know, it's probably the FBI right now. So I move out, open the door. Well, wouldn't be. I'm out there, so I grab a weapon and look to see where he is pointing at.
Yeah, you can see the same figure as described, sort of hunk down in the shadows onto the gantry area. He's got a sniper rifle of some kind trained on this individual.
Okay. What are we shooting?
Maybe it's just the light, but does that look like Miss Black to you?
That's a good question. Are you Miss Black? Or are you going to call out who you are?
So seeing that he's pointing the rifle at me, and now Mr. Beige is kind of involved, I'm gonna step a little bit more out into the light, and I'll put my hands up and I'll be like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to disrupt the scene or anything. Like, please carry on with what you're doing. Like, I don't want to screw it up in any way. Like, I'm just observing. Just continue on.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's perfect. It's perfect. Just observing the scene. That's beautiful. There's a sudden quietness as they contemplate what you're saying to them.
I hear this echoing through the warehouse as I let Mr. Beige go ahead, and I actually went over to Miss Black's body on the ground to get my car keys back.
Yeah,
and so I grabbed those.
Yeah, you've got your car keys. I understand where you're going. That makes sense.
Yeah. And then
Mr. Beige, what are you thinking?
This is going wrong right here. This may be. This is probably something we can't solve.
I'm loving that expression, Mr. Beige.
Let's give her a third character tonight.
Yeah, why don't you give that a try, Mr. Beige? Or Mr. Red?
I just kind of look down so I see her body, and then I see this thing up on the gantry.
Yeah. She's right. It's very similar. Not quite the same. There's a similarity there.
Yeah, sometimes it's some mysteries are best left unsolved. And I look at Mr. Red. We need to get out of here. Let's just torch this whole place.
Hey, I'm liking that. Right, what are you thinking, Mr. Red? What a key moment now. Are you going to plead at all here, Robbie or Robert?
Yeah, so as he's like, Mr. Beige is mentioning that they should get out of there, I'm actually gonna run down the stairs.
Yep.
And I'm gonna, kind of stand by the roller door or the exit area for the cars, and I'm gonna be like, guys, don't go anywhere. Like, he's gonna be here soon, and we should all be here when he gets here. Like, you don't want to leave. Like, I don't want to ruin anything, but like, this is a good opportunity, you guys. This is a great opportunity.
How are you feeling about this opportunity, Mr. Red? Is it a great opportunity? As she rushes down the stairs towards the roller blinds.
I will tell Mr. Green and Mr. Beige, will you both kindly apprehend this woman? And Mr. Beige, I appreciate that the situation might be getting out of control, and I can appreciate that there are far more dead bodies than we really intended. But rest assured that this job will be done, and will be done right for the boss. And I won't hear any insubordination or thievery of any kind.
Are you going to try and apprehend her, Mr. Green or Mr. Beige, as Mr. Red has asked?
I'm probably a little bit of ways away because I was getting my keys. And I would probably actually roll the window down on my car and toss the keys in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I can understand that logic. Yep. Okay, Mr. Beige, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking Miami Beach, shuffleboard. it's that time, and I'm looking to blow up this warehouse, so I'm going to try to rig this van to blow up.
Yeah, there's gasoline tanks around. There's a number of things you could start doing, punch holes in them, start getting gasoline all over the floor.
Yeah, because we got a dead body and then another body that's running around. This is not natural. It's time to roll.
Okay, good job, guys. Like, keep going with the script. just keep it going. Like, you guys
Mr. Beige, hold her. Why are we holding her? Just shoot her.
Good. So
shoot her,
good.
Red.
We saw the last time we shot her. This is what happens.
I mean, that's her. That's something else.
Mr. Beige, I'm going to have to ask you to stay away from the flammable chemicals. I won't ask you again.
Yeah.
Fortune, because we ain't
He
failed.
won't ask you. Watch.
There's some wonderful gasoline mixing onto the floor, holes being punched in cars. What are you going to do, Mr. Red? She's protesting here about, let's keep the scene going.
Ironically, so the way that Mr. Red currently is the job needs to be done. And this is kind of like, because he's very young, and this would be otherwise his first blemish on an otherwise
absolutely. Yeah, a perfect record.
So in this moment, his youth and his inexperience is kicking in. He takes the gun trained off Mrs. Black and points it at Mr. Beige.
Okay, yep.
Because in that moment, Mr. Beige has become his...
what do you think to that, Robbie? Robert? What do you think to that, Robbie or Robert? Any words of encouragement?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, you guys you're doing great things. I think I have such high aspirations for the reception that we're gonna get on this. And I'll point at the booklet that I'm holding, and I'm gonna say, like, this is quality, you guys. Quality. Like, I think that Mr. King is gonna love this. Like, Mr. Gray setting this up, brilliant. Like, he's amazing. He's great. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Just like, carry on. Just like I'm not even here.
Beautiful.
Mr. Green.
Beautiful. Well done. Superb. Mr. Red.
Mr. Green, it appears as though Mr. Beige is shaken. Would you kindly silence this woman? I can't think straight.
I mean, you're closest to her. And get your gun off of Mr. Beige. He's not... That's what you need to focus on. Come on, rookie.
Yeah, he seems shaken by that. He not, again, it's kind of like a reflex. He trains the gun on Mr. Green.
Yeah, brilliant. Yep. Now the gun's on you, Mr. Green.
Hey! Whoa! Hands shoot
He
up.
says,
Robert, what do you think to that?
I mean, like, just like, you know, take a deep breath. Like, everybody's doing what they're supposed to do.
I just need to think. We're not out of
Get
the woods.
the gun off me!
He moves the gun off Green.
No. You weren't supposed to move the gun. Like, you continue pointing it at him. That's what
He points it at Mr. Green.
Do we all hear this?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Why are you listening to this? Her.
Why aren't you capturing her?
I'm over here at the car. You're not. You're over there.
Why is Mr.
Go,
Beige
Robbie.
You got
burn
the
this
gun.
place down?
Keep going, Robbie. Robert, give some encouragement. Keep throwing it in.
You got the gun.
No, okay, no. You're supposed to keep it trained on Mr. Green, and then Mr. Green is supposed to argue with you. He's going to try and walk closer to you, try and encourage you to lower the gun, right? And everything's going to seem to be going fine.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Mr. Red, how do you feel about those words of encouragement?
Where did you come from? Who are you?
I'm gonna take some steps closer. And you're gonna hand me the gun. Just don't aim it at me. I start taking steps closer to Red.
How do you feel about that, Mr. Red? Taking steps closer. Robert, send in your thoughts here.
Pretend again. I'm not here. But Mr. Red, just remember how weird Mr. Green's been acting, right? You know, you're not really trusting him, remember? You know, so if the gun accidentally goes off, it's all going to be fine. Because you know what? At the end, Mr. Beige torches everything anyway. So it's all good. It's good.
Beautiful. Okay, Mr. Red.
I'm not here.
And Mr. Beige.
Mr. Red is going to basically pull out his he's got not shoulder, but he's just putting on his hip his rifle.
Yep.
As he pulls out his pistol because it's now gone into kind of short range kind of engagement. He says, "Look, this woman may have come out of nowhere, but she does have a point, Mr. Green. You're the only one who was alone with all of the treasure, all of that getting. Maybe
what
there is
did you
something
say,
funny about you."
Robert, why don't you explain to Mr. Red where the treasure that's missing is?
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Red, remember that Mr. Green took some of the treasure, right? So after you shoot him, just, you know, remember, you got to check his pockets, you got to get the treasure back, you know, put it back in the chest before you leave with the vehicle. I mean, like, so it's
what
fine.
does it have in its filthy pockets?
I empty my pockets. There's nothing in my pockets.
I believe he put them in.
You can say where it is, Robbie. Where
I put it in a desk.
Robbie?
It's in the car. It's in.
Thanks, Robbie.
And at this point, again, when he shot Miss Black, you could see that there was coldness, there was precision. The way that Mr. Red is waving his gun around right now,
it's trigger happy now. It's trigger.
Yeah.
How do you feel, Mr. Beige?
No sign of that.
How do you feel, Mr. Beige? Very quickly before Red
Well,
comes back.
seeing
Mr. Red triggering now, moving, it's twitchy all over the place now.
Yeah, I'm backing away from the fuel with a cigarette in my mouth, ready to flick it.
Beautiful. Okay.
Yeah.
Robbie, you know what's
Mr.
coming,
Red.
so you're near the doors anyway, so that's quite good. Okay, yeah, go ahead, Mr. Red.
Yeah, Mr. Red, just remember, I'm not here. Like, I feel like you've disconnected from, like, nature. Like, bring it back to, like, you know, like 10 minutes ago. Like, before I was even here, you guys were doing so great. I feel like you've kind of faltered a little bit since I've, you know, coached you. I don't want to disrupt it. Like, just be yourself.
He scratches his head and stops for a moment. And then he takes his gun and he shoots himself in the foot.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you won't miss. I'm not going to ask you to roll for shooting yourself, but if you could just roll your damage.
All right, I take 4 points of damage.
Yep. You do take that damage. And you probably blow off a toe, if I'm honest.
What the?
God!
When he does that, I quickly rush up and grab his gun from him.
Okay, so you're going to try and grapple him at this point, yeah?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
That wasn't in the script, you guys. That wasn't in the.
Neil.
Maybe there was like a last second change. Okay, Mr. Beige, you're supposed to get the med kit. Like, run.
Okay, Mr. Green, test your luck here as you rush across. See if you get lucky. See if you can make enough distance before he can pull the trigger on you or put the gun down.
99.
Okay, Mr. Red, you're still in control of the situation. You see Green rushing towards you. You've taken a shot at yourself, and he's rushing straight at you.
Mr. Red, now with searing pain in his foot, uses that to kind of clear up the mugginess in his head.
Yeah.
He'll stop. He'll unshoulder his rifle and put it to the ground. As he does so, he sort of straightens up his shirt, puts his gun in its holster, and pulls out his comb. He moves his comb across his hair again.
Just as Mr. Green kind of rushes up towards you, so he's right in your face almost. Are you going to bull rush him to the ground, or are you just going to stop?
I just want to take
Green?
the guns. I just want to make sure he doesn't have any guns and can't cause any harm to us.
Okay, are you happy to let him just remove the guns from you for the moment, Mr. Red? Do you think that will help?
Yeah, Mr. Red will put his hands up. Like, once he's done, like, sort of, do it with the hairbrush, he's kind of put his hands up very casually. He's kind of like, again, not putting too much weight on his foot.
It's almost time, Robbie. Robert, it's almost 12. Won't be long now. A couple of minutes, you think?
Yeah. Okay. So just take care of him real quick. But I mean, just remember, you guys, he's gonna be here in a second. Like, so I mean, it's getting close. It's getting close to time. So I just want everybody to be situated and prepared. Like, just everybody feel confident about their role. Like, do you feel like you are Mr. Red? I will say, as I look at Mr. Red, like, do you feel you are him?
Mr. Red straightens up his suit. At this point, it's almost like he's kind of almost blocking out Mrs. Black.
Well, yeah. You might think it's Mrs. Black. That's fine. Yeah.
Well, yeah. That's how he's
visualizing it. Yeah. Great.
He's basically gone. This is Mrs. Black. This is, not the one he shot, but something here is happening.
He's trying to process it.
He's trying to process it. He can't process it, so he basically, by shooting himself in the foot, he's given up processing it. And now he's concerned about. He's gone back to basics. My foot is injured. I need to deal with that. I've pulled a gun on Mr. Beige and Mr. Green. They do not trust me with my guns. I will give them my guns. We need
Mr.
to wait
Green
for another few minutes, and that's it. Yeah. So Mr. Red says, Mr. Green, now that you have the guns, I don't suppose you'll let me tend to my foot real quick.
Do what you got to do as long as you got no more lethal weapons.
Mr. Beige, is there anything you want to add, or are you quite happy to let the scene play out?
Yeah, I would like to try to get some of those boxes that have the loot out of this truck, since I want to blow it up.
Yeah, you can move them to the roller doors where they need to go anywhere when this chap arrives.
Okay.
You'll need some help to do it.
So before I go to help him, I probably put Mr. Red's weapons aside. I pull my own gun out, and I I take a big breath, and I walk over towards the figure.
Yeah.
And I stop. I take one more breath, and I actually take a shot at it with my gun.
Okay, go ahead. Make a roll to shoot this figure. And I'll let you know a little something after you've fired.
Yes, 25 out of 51.
Okay, could you roll damage for your gun?
Yep.
How many hit points does everybody have left? I know most of you are uninjured, but some of you are seriously injured.
I got 7 hit points left.
Right, lovely. Okay.
I got 13.
10 points of damage.
Yep.
So if everybody except the person you fired at could take 10 damage, please.
I'm dead.
You go unconscious. Mr. Red goes unconscious. Mr. Beige is still barely alive. Do you still have that cigarette in the corner of your mouth? Does it drop to the floor?
Oh no!
I mean, I guess what is it, a luck roll?
Yeah, I think a luck roll is perfect. It will drop out of your mouth. It's just a question: do you have enough time to go? I mean, to the door. You're not
6.
scathed at all, Robbie or Robert. That hasn't hurt you in the slightest, as you knew it wouldn't.
I rolled a 6.
That's perfect. Okay, so you've actually literally moved over to as the cigarette's left your mouth, you've kind of rolled over to the doors. And just at that moment, as you arrive at the doors, there's a bang on the door, on those roller doors.
Okay.
You can see that cigarette is slowly rolling towards the fuel.
Okay, so
what are you saying here, Robert?
I'm gonna look over at Mr. Beige, and I'm like, what just happened? Open the doors.
So I see the cigarette. Is the cigarette rolling towards the
just
fumes?
slowly rolling towards the fuel. I mean, you could go and stamp it out.
No, I'm going to get up, and I see the other two are down. I look at, I stagger because I know there's the fire exit in the back.
Yeah.
And I take one long look at my car, and then I start to bolt towards the fire exit.
Okay. Do you open the doors, Robert?
Yeah, seeing him run away, I'm gonna open the doors.
Okay, so just really you and those listening, you start bowling for the fire exit. Okay, when you get to the fire exit, okay, obviously by the time you arrive there, your cigarette will have hit the fuel. You'll notice that the fire exit, you won't have enough time to get out. You'll try, but you just won't escape the fire. You'll be engulfed in it, unfortunately, with your other two colleagues. The only person that's going to leave here alive is Robert. Or what was your real name?
My real name?
Yeah, remembering your family always wanted a boy rather than a girl.
Yeah, Robert Meldrum.
Does that ring a bell with any of you fine gentlemen?
Yep.
What bell does it ring? Is it?
It's got to be.
Interesting. So as the doors open, Robbie, you hear this clicking sound. Robert. You're in the sanatorium, Robert.
What?
Do you remember what you did with your agent, Mr. King? You've told us most of the information. You strung him up. You took his entrails out. That play will never see the light of day, Robert. Thank you for taking part in tonight's Dockside Dogs. To epilogue what happened tonight, let's go through a few things. Firstly, you were all Robert. What was happening, actually, Robert? You played a brilliant character. What were you? Could you tell them?
Me?
Yes.
Oh, so I was the second character. So I was an independent filmmaker, an actor.
The truth of it is that Robert Melcham had been writing a play, but in his research, he had found a book called The King in Yellow, which is a classic Cthulhu piece of work. Unfortunately, that book had sent him over the edge. When his agent, Mr. King, came to his house wondering why Robert hadn't returned any of his calls, answered none of his mail, and hadn't been seen for several weeks, Robert duly strung him up, took out every organ in his body, and when he was eventually found, he was taken to a sanatorium in a very famous place in Cthulhu, but I won't bore you with the details. Needless, Robert has been there for quite some time with a split personality, thinking he's a woman or a man. It really doesn't matter which. And there we have Robert today revealing some of the story of his book, but also the truth of his relationship with his past. Thank you for taking part in tonight's Cthulhu, and I really hope you've enjoyed it.
You got me, Sean. So I just said in the group thing here.
Yeah.
As soon as you started calling her Robert, I was like, oh, something's weird here. Like,
Did you enjoy it? Did you have a good
fun.
time?
Oh yeah.
That was great.
What about yourself?
It was awesome. The only thing I kind of got at was Mr. Gray not being quite what he seemed pretty much when we had that meeting.
Yeah, well, we can tell you a little bit about Mr. Gray, can't we,
Yeah.
Robbie?
What happened with
about
Mr. Gray?
Tell us about Mr. Gray. Who was Mr. Gray?
Who want?
Want me to tell you who Mr. Gray
Yeah,
was?
tell us.
Yeah, do you think you know who Mr. Gray is?
Well, so Mr. Gray was my agent when I was an actor. I mean, he was my agent. He arranged the meeting with Mr. King.
Mr. Gray, for the purposes of the story, Michael, was effectively for want of a better word, it is her figment of her imagination as it slowly unwinds. Mr. Gray was never, ever taking any notes. He's never been involved in any of the story. He was never there at all. But for her, it was her agent. He was always making notes about the play, and it was him really that's always there. Although he interacted with you and there was a part he was real, in truth, he was never there.
See, I kind of was tossing up with the theory that he was a psychologist, and we were all kind of in a delusion, and that he was.
It was kind of, yeah.
Oh, like it was
kind
the
of,
group?
Yeah, it was
like,
kind
like,
of.
you know,
It
we're on a
was
couch
kind of
thing.
that. Yeah, it was kind of that as well going on. So fragments
very
of
cool.
her. You enjoyed it?
Yeah, oh no, absolutely. And I kind of love how we all played very different aspects to Robert. And it almost felt like you know, I was his violent compulsions, and you know, Mr. Green was like the you know, kind of like the more weathered, you know, sort of person. You know, Mr. Beige was the, you know, kind
Mr.
of
Beige is unflappable. I can't utilize him.
Oh yeah, like
he was. There was immediately, as soon as I worked out his kind of personality, immediately made me as a DM go, don't give him anything like that because he's not going to react to it. So let's focus on who he is. And it was beautiful. You played it beautifully, Paula. How did you enjoy it? Because you had a really important part in this.
Oh, this was great. I think this was a lot of fun. I felt like I had no idea what was going on like the entire time.
I just hope for my part, Lee, I haven't embarrassed your stream, and I hope
you were
it
great.
was some fun to
Oh, no,
people
this is
that listen.
Yeah, no, it
I'd
was
be happy to
entertaining.
run. Happy to run another time for you all. It was an absolute privilege and a pleasure. So I thank you all for your participation because it was brilliant and it was a real good laugh. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Cthulhu can be a lot of things, but it's a really interesting psychological game.
Yeah, I think you did a good job. I think there were some times where maybe some things could have breathed a little bit, but no, I think you did a great job. Like the pace was really good. I think the faster pace for me kept me interested. When I've played it before and when I've watched people, sometimes things drag on a little bit too much, and I don't think you let that happen. So that was good.
Yeah, appreciate the feedback. That's very kind. Thank you very much. Very useful. Thank you.
Well, I would definitely play another game with you again too. So.
I really appreciate that, guys. It was very, very good fun. I hope to Michael, we realise you're a bit of a professional, sir, so my hat doffs to you. Thank you very much for gracing us with your 10 minutes of presence. Thank you very much, and thank you for shooting yourself.
I've just got a big ego. That's really it. This you know, all runs on compliments, and no, it's no, honestly, I loved getting to play with you guys. I mean, the thing is, at its heart, it's a game played with friends and people that you can really trust. And honestly, like, especially in something like a psychological horror, which does have its own kind of, I suppose, unique player contract for role-playing games, a group that is like more or less never played together, having so much and just having so much trust. I mean, it was truly a privilege and a lot of fun getting to know each of you and playing with you
well, that means an awful lot. It really does, because it was my biggest fear coming in, is because obviously I know, I like taking risks as a GM, but often when you take a risk like this, because it is a risk, the biggest risk, of course, is not knowing the audience. And the hardest bit with this is because we go live. You know, I've never worked with anybody before in terms of the group. So you don't know what you're going to get. I felt everybody was fabulous. And you're absolutely right, captured a split part of his personality ever so well. So it was excellent from that. How did you feel, Mr. Beige? You were beautifully unflappable. I realised immediately you are the perfect Cthulhu player. There was no point in going anywhere near your character.
It felt like that as the game started. I usually, as far as being a player, I'm usually a slow starter. It takes a while to get into the game. But it felt like for that character, he would be fairly confident, and he would just, you know, he's been around, so it kind of fit into that. And then when I saw the apparition, he would just say, "That's nothing.
That's not what it is.
That's not real. I'm not. You know, we don't need to get excited."
Yeah, I saw that straight away and thought, brilliant. What about you, Lee? Because it's your stream. Are you happy?
Yeah. So normally I'm not a Call of Cthulhu fan in general. It's just not the type of game that I would say normally I'm interested in playing. You know, obviously Paula wanted to play it. So I was like, yeah, let's make this happen. And you had offered to run a Call of Cthulhu game a while back. So no, it was good. It kept my interest. So, you know, I think for the type of game and the players and the group we had here, I really enjoyed it. You can ask Paula. I even said earlier today, I was like, I probably won't ever play it again after tonight. And I would play it again, and I didn't think I would say that.
That's cool. That's good enough for me.
That is about as good of a compliment, if ever, I could give something.
Well, I appreciate that. That means a lot, because that means a lot, and I thank you very much. And particularly to Paula, because you were perfect. You're an ideal Cthulhu player. There is so much that one can do as a referee with that. Beautiful. That's perfect. It's exactly what you need. Cool. I very much enjoyed that. And your portrayal of Robert as the film director was stunning. Frankly, stunning. That was hilarious.
Awesome.
And the fact that no one would train a gun on you to the end was even more fun, I thought.
And it's the guy who was supposed to not be violent.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it changes. Situations force change. So anyway, thank you. That's all it does for me to say is thank you very much. Very much appreciated. I'll get off and get some sleep. Thank you again, and hope to see you all another time. When you're ready, Lee, anytime you like. I've got plenty lined up for you guys.
Thanks for running that for us.
And it's no problem at all. Thank you, and really appreciate it. Nice meeting you all. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll try to go. It's easy.